Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
My thanks to the brilliant Julia Hartley-Brewer. Mark Dolan in for Ian Collins for the rest of this week. Lovely to have your company. What a scorcher. I hope you're enjoying the good weather. Lots to get through, though, and some very tough stories. Breaking this afternoon, tragedy in Belgium as a train hits a busload of children. We will bring you the latest. Meanwhile, Nicola Sturgeon's husband admits embezzling almost £500,000 from the SNP. Is this the final nail in the coffin for Sturgeon's legacy in Scotland? A divided right in Makerfield at the by-election is expected to gift Andy Burnham victory and a return to the House of Commons. So is it time for voters on the right to support Reform UK? My question to you this afternoon is a simple one. Is Nigel Farage now the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Now, my phone number is 0344 499 1000. Faith is taking your calls. But we know you're busy. You're out and about today. It is lovely weather, so you're welcome to leave us a voice note. Producer Finley loves a voice notes, because they are, like him, succinct, to the point, clever, punchy, entertaining. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. We love the text. And, of course, you can watch the show on YouTube. We're on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. But directing our TV output today is Jana. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. In fact, Jana, I might ask you to give the camera a bit of a wobble. Give us a wobble. Come on. Let's do this. There you go. I think we might have broken it. See the boss at 4 o'clock. So much to get through. It's all about your opinions, though. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. And we'll kick off with a very quick Dolan's dispatch. We are at a pivotal moment in our history. It's my view that Andy Burnham will be the likely winner of the Makerfield by-election, which would pave the way for the self-appointed King of the North to do a terrible job as Prime Minister of this country. Hard as it may be to imagine, I think that Burnham will be even worse than Starmer if he gets his hands on the keys to number 10. I honestly think Burnham will be worse than Starmer. It's my view, and just my personal view, that Andy Burnham is a narcissistic grifter who will tell any political audience what they want to hear. Back in the 90s, he was a Blairite. Yes, indeed, folks, a very conservative lefty. Then he was a Brownite, and now he'll have you believe that he's closer to the Corbyn faction of this awful party. He's a total charlatan, a fake, a fraud. If he wins this by-election, he gets number 10, and he will be swept to power following his return to the House of Commons on the back of the left of Labour. Both in the House of Commons, the left will support him, those backbenchers, and of course the membership, who are further to the left of Labour voters, and the powerful trade unions. Now, be clear, if and when Andy Burnham gets into number 10, all of those lefties that have swept him to power, all of those lefties to whom he has pretended to be left-wing himself, will expect their pound of flesh. It's my view that he will dilute, if not scrap, Shabana Mahmood's sensible changes to indefinite leave to remain. He will sign off on inflation-busting pay rises in the public sector. He will borrow more, tax more and spend more. He will bankroll the cult of welfarism by squeezing more money out of working people, the kind of folk who get up in the morning and put a shift in. And he will finally kill a British economy which is on life support. This is a guy in Andy Burnham who was all in with trans ideology and men using female spaces. He said it was only a small minority of people that thought it was wrong for a bloke to use a woman's bathroom. How ironic that a man so famous for his policies around buses that he should decide to throw all women under one in the name of woke ideology. What a horrible charlatan he is. This is a guy who's got a case to answer for his handling of the grooming gangs inquiry. Many argue he was asleep at the wheel as those awful crimes played out. He's a guy that said we shouldn't be in hock to the international bond markets, not realising that we rely upon the largesse of Rolex-wearing financiers overseas just to keep the lights on. But he decides, in a rather vain attempt to look important, that he will attack them. And Andy Burnham is as slippery as Starmer, going on record as saying it's his dream for the UK to rejoin the EU. Now he says that's not his plan. Now, many argue that the guy is incompetent. Many argue he's dishonest. The bottom line is that I think he would be worse than Starmer. And I'll tell you something, he's very thick-skinned. I think he's an egomaniac who would eat himself if he was made of chocolate. He's lost his temper with reporters after just a week of campaigning in this by-election. Why? Well, because he's a pampered politician who's enjoyed the warm populist glow bestowed upon all regional mayors. After all, a regional mayor is there to allocate funds to popular causes, as well as opening hospital wings and kissing babies. It's essentially being a local celebrity. Being Prime Minister is a whole different ballgame. And I believe that if he gets into number 10, Burnham will be found out almost instantly and will be proved to be horribly out of his depth. Because like Starmer, Andy Burnham has no principles, no ideas, no policies, no nous, no acumen, no authenticity, no vision, no plan. I'm not even sure he's got much of a soul, really. This is a guy that's never done an honest day's work in his life. He's never run a business. He's never worked in an A&E department. He's never fixed a pothole. He's just a public servant, paid for by the taxpayer since he was a babe in arms, effectively. Now, there's only one thing worse than Burnham in number 10, and that is a snap election if he wins the leadership of the Labour Party and goes to the country. Now, if he goes to the country this autumn, an unprepared Reform UK and a divided political right could see Labour gifted another 5 years in power. And in the event of a hung parliament, a hellish rainbow coalition made up of Labour, the SNP, the Lib Dems and the Green Party, led by Captain Cleavage himself, Zach Polanski. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. So, folks, at 10 minutes past 1 in the afternoon, back to me, Jana, when you get a second, because I really want to communicate this to my viewing audience. If Burnham wins in Makerfield, it will make our current political nightmare even worse. The King of the North will be a King Terrible Prime Minister. 0344 499 1000. Your reaction. By the way, elite level team here. Jana, straight in there with the live feed, because, of course, a gazillion people listen to us on the radio. But, Finley, the numbers on YouTube are through the roof. And I think the reason why, the North Star of Talk and of Kevin and of Julia and of JK and of Ian and of Peter and of Petri and everyone that features on this channel is the truth. And it's my view that the truth is that Andy Burnham is a counterfeit figure. He's just as slippery as Starmer. I don't believe a word he says. Although, speaking of truth, the ultimate pursuer of truth and justice is the brilliant David Wooding, former editor of the Sunday Express and now columnist at the Sun newspaper. Hello, David.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Lovely to see you. And I really want to get into some of the big stories of the day. Look, I've been a little harsh on Andy Burnham, but I think it's because, unlike, let's say, Jeremy Corbyn, I don't consider this guy to be a particularly consistent individual politically.
No, I mean, he has reinvented himself several times. And even when he was a cabinet minister, he was notorious for flip-flopping. He makes decisions and then changes them.
He's been on more journeys than Phileas Fogg.
He's a weather vane. And there is the gag, I think I've told it on your programme once before, which I used in a column, which has got a lot of follow-ups, which was a Blairite, a Brownite and a Corbynista walk into a bar, and the landlord says, "Good afternoon, Mr. Burnham. What are you having to drink?"
So that says it all.
It does say it all. The problem is when he gets into number 10, it's a completely different job. from being a mayor. And as you just said in your eloquent and slightly sitting on the fence.
I know. And that's the problem. No one really knows what I think.
No, you didn't really give much away there. But as you said in there, being, in my own words, I'd say a glorified local council chief.
Yeah.
And running the country is so much different because you come under so much more scrutiny. And look at Boris Johnson as leader of Greater London, as mayor of London. He won a couple of elections. Everywhere he went, he was feted, glorified. People loved him. He got re-elected, and he would have continued to get re-elected. And the same for Andy Burnham. He's won 3 elections.
And you get credit for projects that you didn't even start, such as the Boris bikes. And of course, Andy Burnham claims a lot of a hand in the economic growth in Manchester.
The buses and trams.
But a lot of those seeds were sown before he became Greater Manchester Mayor.
Leese, the leader, Sir Richard Leese of Greater Manchester, who did a great job before him.
Yeah.
But running the country, you've got so much. You'll have, the opposition in front of you. You've got your rebels behind you. You've got Trump on the phone every day. You've got Putin trying to hack into your systems. You've got everything going on. It's a big job, and it will be a rude awakening for him if he gets into number 10.
And if you think I've been harsh on Andy Burnham, give me a call, especially if you've benefited from his policies as Greater Manchester Mayor. Let me know if you're a Burnham fan. 0344 499 1000. Have I been too challenging regarding his legacy? He is a popular figure, and it looks like at the moment, David, given that the right is divided in Makerfield, that he's probably going to win this seat.
Yes, I mean, his popularity is his big selling point, really. He's a local man who's done well. And of course, the other point is his big thing was, you said he was a public servant all his life, but he sold himself as a man who's an outsider. He's a northerner fighting all these people in Westminster who don't understand what it's like to live in one of the inner cities outside of London. Of course, that's not true because he spent most of his time in Westminster bubble from when he left university.
Attended Oxbridge as well.
Yeah, and then became a special advisor to Tessa Jowell, then became an MP, then became a cabinet minister, and then went up and said, "I'm not like that lot in London." And now he wants to go back to London. So the whole thing will change. But yes, it's not a given that he's going to get in. But also there is some issue with Restore Britain and Reform, because Restore Britain, which only has 7% of the vote, according to a poll, is likely to take it away from Reform, and that could be what sneaks Andy Burnham into the seat.
Well, that's our question this afternoon. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? That's a conversation that's going to be played out over the next few years, isn't it?
Absolutely. And there is talk, actually, in a general election, Reform might not have enough votes to form a majority in the next Parliament if there was an election tomorrow. And they would have to unite with the Conservatives in order to stop a coalition of Labour, the Greens, the Lib Dems, the SNPs and all the left. But we've got a smaller version here because the Conservatives in Makerfield aren't doing very well at all, and Reform UK just behind Labour in the polls. So if Restore Britain are taking votes away, and then they have no chance, Restore have no chance of winning Makerfield, but they could take a few votes that would ordinarily go to Reform and thereby let Andy Burnham in.
Now, David, we have some devastating breaking news in Belgium that you'll be aware of, and of course this will feature in The Sun when it goes to press tonight, and we'll likely have more information as the day goes on. But a school bus has been hit by a train at a level crossing in the town of Bugenhout, which is north of Brussels. 4 people have been killed, with 5 children injured, after reports, according to the newswires in front of me, that the bus driver broke through the rail barrier. This, according to police who have been speaking to local journalists. Just the most devastating tragedy.
Shocking, yes. And anybody whose children are on a school trip at this time will be waiting for news, wondering if it's their youngsters who are involved. And I've covered in my days as a reporter some of these tragedies. I once went to do one in France where a lot of people have been killed, and who went into the hospitals, and there were people who had survived with terrible injuries. And it's truly shocking. It could be anybody who's on one of these coaches.
Most definitely. Well, the Makerfield by-election is playing out as we speak. It happens next month. And here are the candidates. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats. Andy Burnham, Labour. Dan Clark, Libertarian. Alan Howling, Loud Hope, the official monster raving loony party. Robert Kenyon, Reform UK. Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield, Green Party. Peter Ward, Rejoin EU. Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. Those are the runners and the riders. My question to you this afternoon is a simple one. Ping over a voice note if you can, because I want to know what you think about this. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? That's next.
Child abuse will never go away, and the men in these gangs will do everything in their power to continue to abuse children if they see that the state is not serious about tackling it. And you know, that's the problem. I mean, there's Fiona, you're showing there. You know, she's fought for 20 years. It shouldn't take 20 years to get a council to say we are going to look at, you know, industrial scale rape of children by men who are old enough to be the granddads.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
1:20, you're listening to Talk. Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins, and we've got so much to get through today. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Stuart has messaged the show. Good afternoon, Stuart. Mark, as a Makerfield resident myself with family across local towns, I can tell you Reform are the only party with any visible presence in the town, be they garden signs, window posters or visible canvassers. No other party in the area has any presence whatsoever. As for Restore, led by Rupert Lowe, their online hubris is not reflected on the ground. Today they attracted 15 canvassers, while Reform have dozens, even hundreds, on any given day. What about this from Dan in Kent? Good afternoon, Mark. I hope Burnham wins with a huge majority. So much so it gives them the confidence to call a general election. Starmer, Burnham, Rayner or Miliband, they're all socialist nutters that live in a la-la land, and sooner we get back to common sense capitalism to grow the economy, the better. Loving the show, says Dan. Thank you for that. Janice, good afternoon, Janice. How are you? She says, hello, Mark, and hello, David. The polls that you are both on about, where Reform are at this by-election, is a poll of 500 people. So therefore, maybe not that accurate. Thank you so much for that. Well, we're going to take your calls and your voice notes on whether Farage is the only politician that can defeat the left in the UK. But it is quite extraordinary what's happened north of the border and the SNP. How the mighty have fallen with Nicola Sturgeon, once the all-powerful Queen of Scotland. And now we have the shopping list of items that Peter Morrill allegedly has paid for from stolen funds from the SNP. In fact, let's turn this into a special talk game show. Take it away. Yes, indeed. Welcome to the SNP game show. I'm your host, Mark Dolan. This show is sponsored by a bunch of corrupt lefties north of the border. So for your chance to win a load of stuff you haven't paid for, then simply look at the prices we've got on offer. A video game set, FIFA 2014, when Scotland was still financially solvent. Battlefield 4, sounds like the SNP now, as well as a PlayStation 3 console. Joseph bread bin. Well, we know that the Sturgeons love a bit of bread, don't we? They love the Wonga. A Beatles special edition fountain pen and rollerball. Of course, that's with all those fake cheques that were being cashed. A scale model of a helicopter from Let's Shop Airbus. 500 quid, yikes. 2 ideal standard toilet seats, perfect for the amount of CRAP that we've had from the SNP over 2 decades. And 8 umbrellas, perfect for the Scottish weather. Stay tuned for more games, courtesy of the SNP. Well, David Wooding, former editor of the Sunday Express, now Sun columnist, we have to laugh because otherwise we would cry, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
Is this the final nail in the coffin of Nicola Sturgeon's legacy in Scotland?
Well, she's got to come clean. I mean, one of the Scottish papers, I think it was the Daily Record this morning, had a picture of her done up like Manuel from the Fawlty Towers, and it said across it, "I know nothing." And the question is now being asked, what did she know? Not only was she married to him, lived in the same house as him, obviously, but she was the leader of the Scottish National Party when he was the leading official. She signed off on all the budgets. He brings home a Jaguar costing £81,000 and a Volkswagen for £33,000. Does she not say, where'd you get that money from for that? And then when he comes home with a £5,000 watch on his wrist, does she not say, how much have you spent on that watch? Or who's given it to you? Are you having an affair? I mean these things must... it beggars belief. And the list, the one that grabbed me was a box of Chocolossus biscuits, £17.95. It reminds me your little gag then. It was a bit like Bruce Forsyth's Generation Game, cuddly toy. It was very much along those. This list is just absolutely gobsmacking. If your viewers and listeners haven't actually read the full list, go online and have a look and read it. You'll just sit there with your mouth open. How on earth she doesn't know anything about this is beyond me. She, of course, says she didn't know.
Well, absolutely she does. And, of course, she will, insist that she was ignorant of this spending that was going on, the corruption that was at play. She has since proceeded to divorce this man. But any spouse worth their weight will know what their hubby is or isn't spending. This notorious motorhome was sat on their driveway for a while.
Yes, and I think it was put on one of the parents' driveway for some time. And that was, I remember back in the day when this scandal first erupted, when the police seized that motorhome. What's been so shocking on this one, and this is why I think this one will run and run, Mark. We've known about this for some time, that he's been charged and with police investigations and so forth. But he kept protesting his innocence. It's only when he turned up in court yesterday with his overnight bag that we start to go, hang on a minute, and then he pleaded guilty. So now all this is all new. Nobody knew any of this before, and now the questions are being asked of Nicola Sturgeon. This is not going to go away anytime soon. This story will run and run. And the other point I'd make here, Mark, is the elections were only 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the SNP kept control of Scotland. Isn't it convenient that the court case came out after the elections when the SNP was put back in power? I mean, what would have happened if the court case had been a week or so before them? The SNP, I mean, how on earth they can be re-elected after this? And I know that John Swinney's saying, I feel betrayed, I'm devastated by what's happened. But nevertheless, This has absolutely discredited this is worse than the MP's expenses scandal. This is absolute and utter embezzlement.
It is worse than the MP's expenses scandal, which was a great scoop and great public interest journalism from the Telegraph. But the reason why it's different is the vast majority of cases did not involve theft, did not involve embezzlement or corruption. Essentially what happened, would you agree, for the most part, with the expenses scandal, is that the House of Commons authorities said to MPs, look, the public won't really swallow annual pay rises, so we will be very generous with the expenses, knock yourself out, and that's how we'll make up the shortfall. And that, therefore, with the duck ponds and the flat screen tellies, a lot of that was perfectly legal, just improper, and that's the difference.
It was the entire political system pulling the wool over the eyes of the general public, and they were all at it. And in fairness, they weren't actually doing anything wrong. They were claiming their heating bills on the council tax on their second homes because they were allowed to.
Yeah, and a packet of Maltesers and a light bulb. It looks petty, but no law was being broken. This guy's going to go to prison, isn't he? I also wonder, you know, David, you're a journalist and therefore a student of the human condition. Does it strike you that there's a pathology at play here? Because the Sturgeons are not poor people, and they're prominent members of Scottish society and at the very top of the political system. He probably didn't need to steal money from the party to pay for OXO Good Grips egg poachers and Toomey wheeled briefcases. They probably had the means anyway, so there's something strange at play here.
Absolutely. And why would you need a salt and pepper shaker costing £2,000? I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you've got a couple of rather nice salt and pepper grinders, which we bought from John Waitrose or somewhere like that, John Lewis. And you know, they probably cost 10 or 20 quid, and they're perfectly nice and luxurious. Why would you need to spend £2,000 on one? Yeah, I mean, it's beyond. I mean, who are they impressing with this?
And it's not the best advert for one-party rule in any given country, is it?
No.
The footprint of the SNP now within Scottish public life and its institutions is colossal.
Yeah,
media and the public institutions, the public sector, they're very, very embedded.
Yeah, it's almost like a thieving magpie, isn't it? Collecting little bits of jewellery and shiny goodies to keep in your house. I mean, it is bizarre. Some of the things there. Is it worth going to jail for buying a posh box of biscuits? I mean,
it's quite strange. Now, Nicola Sturgeon, doubtless devastated,
yes,
and furious. Where does she go from here? How does she style this out?
Well, it's going to be very difficult for her, because the question now is going to be asked endlessly, why did you not spot any of this? And she says she didn't know about it. Where's the curiosity? That's the other thing, isn't it, Mark? I mean, we asked this about Keir Starmer. The lack of curiosity about Peter Mandelson. You know, he's a former director of public prosecutions.
Yeah.
Did he not think to ask? Was he not raising any questions? It's normal. And you know, your husband and the boss of the party of which you're leader comes home with all these fancy goods, and you don't ask where or why. You just don't pay any attention.
The whole thing is fascinating. The pro all-surface swing ball. I didn't know that Nicola was into swinging, but guys, can you not be? Sometimes the audience are very immature,
yes.
And I'm talking about tennis.
Yes, of course. And some people just don't know what you're talking about, Mark.
Out of it, listen. I think the weather's got to me. We're going to do some hard news after this. But David, I will ask you, in your very successful and long career in journalism, which continues to this day, have you accrued any nice freebies over the years? Because there are many wealthy benefactors who might seek to have a more emollient journalistic position from you. So have you ever been bribed, or have you any bungs?
I've never been bribed. I mean, I've gone on a free holiday and written a travel piece.
Nice. Can you remember where you went?
Oh yeah, I went on a cruise down the Nile in January.
That's
and I had to write a travel piece for 3 newspapers, and it was all above board, and the papers.
And you wrote a nice piece about it, and you didn't mention the Somali pirates.
Well, I mentioned things that, you know, you say what's good and
just
what's
colourful locals.
Yeah, I've been invited to places, to lunches and a few things with people over the years, but that's part of the course. As long as you're not corrupted by what you do, that's fine. And politicians do the same, in fairness.
Yeah.
They get invited to all sorts of things. Keir Starmer goes to the football.
Of course he
I don't
does.
begrudge him that. He's the Prime Minister and he needs to sit in the posh seats, because he wouldn't be able to relax if he was among the old Arsenal fans, would he?
Well, full disclosure, all I've had is free vouchers for the Talk canteen. I never had worse food poisoning. Honestly, I was hugging that bowl overnight. David, great to see you. Listen, we'll catch up very soon. You're off to The Sun now.
Yep.
Writing great copy, of course. Always love reading your columns in The Sun newspaper. Brilliant to have you in the studio with us. My thanks to David Wooding, columnist at The Sun, former editor of the Sunday Express. So many more big stories to get through, folks. A lot to get through. But I really want to have this conversation about the divided right, because it looks like it's going to gift victory to Andy Burnham in Makerfield. So our question this afternoon is a simple one. We're taking your calls, we're taking the voice notes. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? 1:33, this is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. Mark Dolan in for the brilliant, the wonderful Ian Collins. I'm with you all week. What a wonderful treat to be here in the afternoon. Thank you for the calls, texts and the voice notes, which we're going to air very shortly. We obviously need to give Nicola Sturgeon the right of reply. She is the estranged wife of Peter Murrell, who's going to go to prison for embezzling funds from the SNP to the tune of almost £500,000. And let's have a look. She has said the following in a statement via her lawyers. Today, the media is reporting details of items that my former husband has now admitted buying with SNP funds. I've seen questions raised about how I could not know about this and how I could not have known about this. I want to reiterate that I had no knowledge or suspicion whatsoever that personal items had been purchased using SNP funds. And Finlay, while we're in this conversation about balance, I will talk about Andy Burnham. I'm not a fan. I think he's a charlatan, a narcissist and a fake. OK? That's what I think. I think he'll be worse than Starmer. But it's worth pointing out that he is the most popular politician in the whole of Greater Manchester. He has won the mayoralty with a landslide. Many people credit Andy Burnham with an economic boom, a construction boom, and a massive improvement in public services in that region. And he's very popular there. And it could well be that his popularity sees him cross the line. But there's something else that's going to help him, and it's a divided right. Reform UK, led by Nigel Paul Farage, and Restore, led by Rupert, Kenneth Lowe. I made up that middle name. I can't remember what his middle name is. So these two men are at loggerheads. Of course, they were once colleagues under the Reform banner. They fell out. Rupert Lowe now runs Restore, and it seems like it's got enough support to dilute the Reform vote and gift the seat to Andy Burnham. So is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Is it the duty of right-wing voters to back Reform UK? Let's get the views of a very good friend of mine. Myran Senthil-Nathan is a political commentator and former Reform UK candidate. Hi, Myran.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Very well. Lovely to see you this sunny afternoon. It's disappointing, isn't it, to look at the polls and see that it could be that Restore deprive Reform of victory.
Yeah, look, I want to make it clear that Restore is actually what I would class a fraudulent party. And what I mean by that is it's a party that is trying to profess that it's going to give a political revolution to the nation. But if you actually look at their policies are essentially non-different to reforms. In fact, there's an argument to be made that Zia Yusuf and reforms, abolishment of indefinite leave to remain and the retrospective removal of asylum status for those who came illegally is actually to the right of Restore. But it's actually deeper than that. Restore have a massive systemic problem. Rupert Lowe is a civic nationalist. He's a Thatcherite Tory. And then you have people underneath them like Charlie Downs, who are what you might call nativist nationalists, who believe that being British is about ancestry. And then you have other supporters who are kind of ethno-nationalists, like I think her name is Saskia Tree, I believe her name is. This is a tribe of Restore. They are deeply conflicted. They say they want to put the British people first, but they cannot even define who the British people are to themselves. And that's why I think this is a flawed political party that is conning a certain section of the electorate and stealing the vote away from Reform.
Now, Myron, I hear what you're saying, but is it not an insult to Restore supporters? An insult maybe to their intelligence that somehow they've been hoodwinked by Rupert Lowe? There are millions of people that really agree with everything Rupert posts on X, for example.
Well, I'm not sure that Rupert actually posts on X. From what I've heard, it could be somebody else. But look, the public are so exasperated. They're so enraged, quite rightly, of what's been happening over the last 14, 16 years. And so they are searching for the most anti-establishment movement that they can find. And that's why I think Restore is capitalising on that. Reform have to be a truly national party, which means they do need a degree of broad appeal. They cannot please every single person on the right, whereas Restore is a tribal party, not a national one. And so they have the luxury of saying things like they're going to cause a political revolution when they're not. They use slogans like millions must go, I don't care. But the reality is they are conflicted about what it means to be British within themselves. I believe they're harbouring some toxic elements on the right, and they are not offering hardly anything different to Reform, in fact, to the left of Reform, if anything else.
Although, Myron, you know as well as I do that there are toxic elements in every party, and we've seen Rupert Lowe very combative on TV and on radio over many years, very ideologically consistent as well, and he hasn't got people around him creating answers when he's on the BBC or Sky News or Talk. He's a very authentic politician. I think many are attracted to Restore because what they see it as is an example of undiluted, proper conservatism. They look at Reform, they're worried about Nadhim Zahawi and other Tories turning up.
Yeah, if you look at Rupert Lowe, what's he actually said? He's a Thatcherite Tory, as I said, but he's also championed the likes of Robert Jenrick in the past. He's also championed the likes of Danny Kruger in the past, who are actually in Reform and had lead roles in the Reform HQ in their operation. The names you mentioned of Nadhim Zahawi and Nadine Dorries, they're members of Reform, but I don't see them playing any major role in Reform. So I can understand people having concerns about them, but they're not operationally active with Reform as it stands.
Myron, you're a really nice man. You're really easy to get on with. You and I could be amazing collaborators because you're reasonable, you listen, you're not a diva, dangerously intelligent, all the rest of it. What about Nigel and his personality? Do you think he's too much of a diva? Is it the Nigel show over at Reform? Do you think that he mishandled his relationship with Rupert Lowe?
I don't know the ins and outs of it. Look, it was definitely, you could see that Nigel himself was wounded by it. And I think I actually came out on talk on Julia's show to speak out about the fact that it was a very sad and traumatic situation for all.
It wouldn't have happened on your watch, Myran. You're not that type of person. You would have made it work with Rupert.
I don't know the ins and outs. Rupert's character, from what I've heard, is, look, he's a very tenacious character, very strong-minded, which works in some situations really well and is quite appealing. But if you want to be part of a team and you have to toe the party line, it perhaps isn't the best trait to have. And I think that's where the conflict happened.
Now, Myran, what do you think about this by-election? Do you think that Reform can win it? What do you need to move the dial in this critical constituency?
I think we have to basically play your monologue that you said at the beginning of your show and expose who Andy Burnham really is. He is somebody who's a shapeshifter, a Corbynite, a Blairite, whatever he needs to be at whatever time. And so I think we also need to make the public aware that if Andy Burnham gets in, the indefinite leave to remain of Shabana Mahmood's reforms could actually could actually be abolished. It wasn't in the King's speech, from my understanding. So what I'm worried about is that the Boris wave could end up becoming the Rupert Lowe wave if this happens, and we have to make that clear to the public.
Nigel's the only politician in the country that can defeat the left now, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what happened with Nigel
Tories
came in and he said during the general election, Labour are going to win.
Restore are too
Tories
small.
are done, but
Restore is too small. Tories are done.
They're done. But reform, listen to what Nigel has said. He wants to make a beachhead into Parliament, and that's what he did. He then wanted to do well in the 2025 local elections. That's what he did. He formed a shadow cabinet. That's what he did. He then did stompingly well in the 2026 local elections. And so everything that Nigel has done has been, frankly, miraculous when you understand he's trying to build a strong right-wing party to deal with the extremities of what's happened over the last 14 years. At the same time, dodge a very hostile media that is waiting on the sidelines, gleefully trying to label him as far right. And that's a miraculous, skillful operation that only Nigel Farage could have done.
There are lots of messages coming in, half of them in support of what you're saying very passionately, Myran, and half who are all in with Rupert Lowe's project. What would your message be to those who are attracted to Rupert's offer?
Rupert Lowe is not offering a political revolution because his policies are almost non-different to reform. That's the first thing. Second thing is the Restore Party do not know who the British people are. They are conflicted and they are contradicting each other internally. And I also believe they are harbouring some very toxic elements, not explicitly, but by passively not disassociating themselves in a proper way from this ilk. I believe Restore will be infiltrated in a toxic way going forward. It's not the party that we need to form government. We have very little time, only 3 years left. We have to unite under reform and we have to get this over the line.
Myran, is it your honest view that reform need 2 or 3 years to prepare for power? Would a snap election, if Andy Burnham gets into number 10, be a problem?
I think if any reform government would be better than a Labour government, even if it was a snap election that was called tomorrow morning. But yeah, I mean, maybe an extra year or so for legislation to come through and the right policies to be fleshed out in more detail, some of that would be helpful. But look, if there was a snap-gen election tomorrow, the country would benefit from a reform government, no doubt.
And Myran, do you fancy a stab at running for a seat in the House of Commons at the next election?
Well, I've made no secret about I stood for them in July 2024, and I would stand again if they would have me.
And do you think they will?
Not for me to decide, I hope so.
They would need their heads examined. What about a national election? I just wonder whether parties like Restore may lose support when it came to a general election, and whether what you're seeing in this factionalism is not untypical for a by-election midterm.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is if Restore do actually, let's say, split the vote, Andy Burnham gets in, what will happen is it will be a biopsy for the general election, in the sense that people will look and say, look, if you vote Restore, you will let Labour in, a left-wing coalition to go in. But what's also going to happen is if Restore become a little bit more successful and get under proper scrutiny, Nigel and Reform will be able to point to Restore and say, look, you think we're far right. You should see some of the toxic elements within this party, and then it would actually make Reform stand out as a more palatable option for many people. So I think going forward, ultimately speaking, I would hope that reform come out of this shining.
Just before I let you go, are you ready for one or two slightly hostile texts, Myron?
Yeah, go for it.
OK, they're not abusive, but they don't agree with you. Myron, frankly, has a serious case of restore derangement syndrome, says Matt. I'm currently hovering over the let's not listen to talk until after the election button. All this restore bashing is forcing people like me to never vote reform and simply abstain or vote Tory. Mark, it's an insult, says Shell. As a restore member, I'm sick of the state of our country, what's happening to our people on the daily basis and the regular Rupert bashing. I do not use social media, but I still found out about what restore stands for, as have a lot of older people I know who share my concerns. Somehow you, Nigel, and everyone else need to build a bridge to folk like Michelle.
Look, I understand that. There is a lot of rage out there and people are angry. And I think that's what I said earlier. Rupert seems to offer this political, puritanical, idealistic vision, and they are gravitating towards that. But what I'm saying is I believe they're deeply conflicted within themselves, and I don't believe they actually offer anything different to reform. In fact, I think in some sense it's a diluted version of what reform is offering. So I would urge people to look in detail and think carefully. What does restore stand for that is so substantially different on the ground from reform? And let me ask those people in restore, who are the British people? Ask Rupert Lowe, ask Charlie Downs, and ask their supporters. You will get different answers. They themselves are confused and contradicted, and this is why it will fall apart in the long term.
Listen, I'm very grateful that you've joined us, Myron, because you are one of those people who seeks a political role, perhaps a place in the House of Commons, whilst also having a successful career. You're a dentist, aren't you?
I am, yeah. That's my day job.
So there you go, and you're in surgery right now. I must come and see you about my wobbly molar.
You're more than welcome to, Mark. I'll do you a special price.
Like all problematic things, it's on the left. Myron, great to chat.
Let's see if we can do something on the right.
Listen, really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch up soon. We know you're a busy man. Myron Sentinel Nathan, political commentator, former Reform UK candidate and professional dentist as well. Well, look, I think that you guys are split down the middle. I really do. I think half of you love Restore and Rupert. Half of you love Nigel and Reform. What do I think? I like Nigel and I like Rupert. That doesn't help, does it? How do we fix this? Is Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Your call's next.
Child abuse will never go away, and the men in these gangs will do everything in their power to continue to abuse children if they see that the state is not serious about tackling it. And you know, that's the problem. I mean, there's Fiona, you're showing there. You know, she's fought for 20 years. It shouldn't take 20 years to get a council to say we are going to look at, you know, industrial scale rape of children by men who are old enough to be the granddads.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk. Of course, the Makerfield by-election is being hotly contested, and there are multiple candidates for your interest, and of course, especially if you are a resident of Makerfield. Here are the candidates in the Makerfield by-election. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats; Andy Burnham, Labour; Dan Clark, Libertarian; Alan Howlin, Loud Hope, the official monster raving loony party; Robert Kenyon, Reform UK; Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain; Sarah Wakefield, Green Party; Peter Ward, Rejoin EU; and Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. OK, let's speak to Mark in Lincolnshire. Hi, Mark.
Hi there, Mark.
Thank you so much for calling. I'm really, really well. Do you think Nigel Farage is the only politician in Britain that can defeat the left?
No. Simply. Obviously, if Reform don't exist, those votes go somewhere else, don't they?
Yes.
Probably somewhere like Restore Britain, for example. So is he the man to lead Britain? No, I don't think so. I think until, I was listening to Byron, was it, a minute ago there, and he was talking about, obviously very much pro-reform. And, that's his right to be that way, whatever. However, the way I see this is that, till Restore Britain come along, Nigel and Reform were doing what I believe they truly are at the end of the day, which is far more like the Tories than people want to admit they are, in so much as they were veering left. They were taking their working class base for granted. The rhetoric on deportations, on all these kind of issues, was weakening. It was getting, hence why we will attack them with weak sauce. It's kind of a phrase we use, because that's how it's seen. We're not copying Reform's policies at this point. They're copying ours at the end of the day. Weaker versions of ours, which they think are more palatable to the general public.
Mark, do you think that Restore is a bit like full-fat Coke compared to the Diet Coke of Reform?
That's probably a good analogy, actually, Mark.
It's the real deal, undiluted conservatism.
Yeah, essentially. But obviously a slight twist on the fixing the country in the sense of, obviously dealing with the immigration issue that's happened over the last 30 years, really. I think there's far more to restore than people give it credit for. It isn't really just a one-man band. There are other people in the background that post out quite regular. That do appear where they can appear, because obviously there does seem to be something of a media blackout on them for some reason. I think that, Reform and their acolytes and, their bigger supporters can pretend all they like, which is what a lot of this seems to be. The reality is, from Reform's leaked canvassing numbers and the ones that Restore transparently put out, it kind of almost puts Restore and Reform pretty neck and neck in Makerfield.
I mean, my difficulty, Mark, is I like Nigel and I like Rupert. How do you solve that one?
Well, I'm not really sure that you can, really.
Because, Mark, you'd bite your hand off for Nigel Farage in number 10 versus Keir Starmer or Andy Burnham, wouldn't you?
It would be, anybody's really preferable on the right to anybody on the left, aren't they, at the end of the day? As I've said in the past, this by-election, we're perfectly entitled to fight this by-election because as a 3-month-old party, we need to find where we are. Now, if our feeling is correct and that we're actually going to end up doing somewhere around 15 to 20% in this by-election, if not even better, then that's the real impetus to say, yes, we can go on and do something here.
Well, Mark, I hear you. So I think, very briefly, if you can, I think you feel that Restore could actually get a lot more votes in this by-election, far more than 7%, the latest poll suggests. What about nationally at an election? Is it conceivable that Rupert Lowe could become Prime Minister?
I think, yeah, it's very possible, of course. At the end of the day, again, people don't seem to realise this. There's over well over 300 branches throughout the country now, with more opening every week.
Okay.
There's a lot of support there. I mean, for example, I'm in Boston, and I know for a fact the next election, if Restore are still there, which they should be, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, but Reform will lose the seat at the next general election.
Well, Mark, what a fascinating conversation. Please stay in touch with me. I'm going to make you the Restore correspondent here at Talk. I really enjoyed hearing your thoughts on that. Here's a voice note from Phil.
Good afternoon, Mark. What a great monologue. Mark, a message to all these so-called voters on the right. The people that are thinking of voting for Restore and Rupert Lowe, do they not understand what it actually is they're going to do? Are their brains so divided or somewhere else that they do not realise that by voting for them and splitting the vote, they're basically handing the keys back to possibly Burnham and Labour? What is wrong with these people? If that happens and we end up with another Labour government or a mixture, a jamboree bag full of whatever, it's going to be down to them, isn't it? Because they will be the ones that split the vote. And if that is the case, I hope they slum back into the distance under their little stones and stay there.
And here's Russ.
To do with Andy Burnham, you're 100% correct. He will be worse than Starmer, and I know the viewers are thinking there's no one that can be worse than Starmer. Believe me, Burnham is going to be worse than Starmer. People who are thinking of voting Restore, don't. My advice would be don't, because you could split this vote and get him in and get Burnham in. He is going to be terrible. He is a chameleon, a charlatan and a chancer, and he will make terrible decisions.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Russ. Keep those voice notes and calls coming. Is Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. Mark Dolan here on Talk, in for the brilliant Ian Collins. I'm with you all week, 1 till 4. Lovely to have your company. Big Kevin O'Sullivan live at 4. Lots of stories to get through this afternoon, and we'll start with a really, really tough one. Tragedy in Belgium as a train hits a busload of children. We will bring you the latest. Nicola Sturgeon's husband admits embezzling almost £500,000 from the SNP. Is this the final nail in the coffin for Sturgeon's legacy in Scotland? A divided right in the Makerfield by-election is expected to gift Andy Burnham victory and therefore a return to the House of Commons, potentially a run at becoming Prime Minister. So is it time for voters on the right to support Reform UK? Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Give us a call. Faith is taking your calls this afternoon. You can also leave us a voice note. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can hear us on the radio this afternoon, DAB+, in-app and online. Maybe you've got us in the car or in the van if you're busy at work. Perhaps you're at home relaxing, trying to cool down. But you can also watch the show. Just head to YouTube now and search Talk and up we pop. So much to get through. Let's talk. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Well, let's have a look at what's happening north of the border and this crisis surrounding the SNP and their former chief executive, Peter Murrell. Lord Fuchs is a Labour MP. Great to see you again, sir.
Good afternoon, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. Lovely to have you back on the show. Is this the final nail in the coffin of Nicola Sturgeon's legacy in Scotland?
I've never been a great fan of Nicola Sturgeon. I think she dominated Scottish politics with an iron hand. And that's why I find it incomprehensible that she claimed she didn't know what her husband was up to. I mean, if I drove E-Type Jaguar or whatever it was into the driveway of my house, my wife would wonder where I got the money from. And that seems to me to be the case in every household, and I can't understand why Nicola Sturgeon claims she didn't know. I also find it strange that the First Minister, the current First Minister, John Swinney, is treating himself as he's one of the aggrieved, as if he's a victim, whereas he appointed Peter Murrell as chief executive when he was first appointed, and he should have carried out proper due diligence at the time. And if he had done so, I doubt if he would have appointed Peter Murrell. So I think he's as guilty as anyone.
Most definitely. And Peter Murrell held the position, I believe, for 24 years. It's likely that he had far too much power within the party.
Far too much power. The other thing was, it was a very strange setup that he was married to the First Minister, and the First Minister and the Chief Executive of the party being married were in two separate relationships, husband and wife, and also boss and employee. And that's why it is just, I think a lot of people commented about it at the time, that it was just something that was going to cause problems, and it did cause problems.
At best, too cosy. At worst, inappropriate and improper, George.
I think that does look as if it has been improper, and if there was cosy relationships, as you say, but also as if at the time there were, what would you call it, inappropriate activities being carried out, which both of them were involved in.
George, why do the SNP remain stubbornly popular in Scotland, given not just scandals like this, but also the Scottish economy and Scottish public services and the highest figures for drug deaths in the whole of Europe?
I think it is astonishing. I think there are a lot of people, of course, who are in favour of Scottish independence, nearly 50% in the polls. And a lot of them vote for the SNP for that reason alone, because they're in favour of Scottish independence. And they forget about some of the scandals, some of the incompetence, the ferries that don't run, the health service being worse than it is south of the border, the education deteriorating, and vote for the SNP because of independence. And that's a pity. I also think, to be fair, in the Labour Party, we didn't have a bold enough campaign, a powerful enough campaign and a bold enough agenda, manifesto for the last election. I think we should have fought harder and put forward more exciting opportunities and proposals to the Scottish electorate. But even so, it's astonishing that people vote for an incompetent government like the SNP after all the scandals, all the incompetence that we've seen.
It's a real concern and not a good advert for one-party rule in any given nation. George, can we get to today's Dolan's dispatch? And I'm deeply concerned at the idea of Andy Burnham as Prime Minister. I think we should stick with Starmer until the next election. Andy Burnham has, at various stages in his career, been a Blairite, a Brownite and a Corbynite. He's been on more journeys than Phileas Fogg. He's done more U-turns than Maureen from driving school.
That's a very interesting way of describing it. I hope Andy Burnham wins the by-election. I like Labour to win all these by-elections. The Reform candidate is a very doubtful person. And also, the interesting thing is, the leader of Reform, Nigel Farage, I don't know if he's been on your programme or on Talk at all, but he's refusing to go on any programmes because he doesn't want to answer the question as to why he got £5 million from a cryptocurrency magnate in Thailand. He doesn't want to answer that. And that's why I think that the Reform are not going to win, or Restore, the other right-wing party, are not going to win in the by-election. And I hope Andy Burnham wins. But once he comes in, I hope he will become part of the Starmer team, the Keir Starmer team, and support Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have done a great job. The Labour Party was turned round by Keir Starmer. He won a great election victory. He's been doing a good job. It hasn't been covered well enough in the media. And I think we need MPs and peers and everyone else needs to go out and argue more strongly as to what Keir Starmer has done. And I hope when Andy Burnham becomes an MP, he will do that. He'd make a good member of Keir Starmer's government.
Now, George, I know it's hot outside, but have you been on the Pims early?
No, not at all. No, I certainly don't drink these days. And
well, I think you've been drinking. I think you've been drinking the Burnham Kool-Aid, because you think that he can return to the House of Commons and just be in the cabinet as a dutiful servant to Keir Starmer. Good luck with that.
Well, he may stand against Keir Starmer,
and
but if he does, he'll lose. He'll lose.
Are you out of your tiny mind? George, are we living in a parallel universe? Where are you coming to us from? Outer space?
I've been looking at the people who are posting on X on my timeline. I've been
all your lefty mates, all those latte lefties.
I've been no. I've been listening to people in the House of Lords. I've been listening to people in the street.
Bloody hell. Well, that will wake you up.
I've been listening to people in the street. I've been listening to people at the football at every opportunity, and people want Keir Starmer to remain.
The issue you have is Labour backbenchers who do not want Starmer to fight the next election, and a party membership that feel betrayed. If Andy Burnham gets into the House of Commons, you know as well as I do, George, that he will run for the leadership of the party and he will win.
Do you want to take a small bet on that?
Yes, I do. £5 for charity. NSPCC.
I'll agree.
Actually, I'll tell you what. I'll give the money to the SNP because they haven't got any left.
Well, I'll give the money to a far better cause. I'll give the money to Age Scotland, the charity that looks after all the people in Scotland. Very good one.
That's
or
good.
the Ayrshire Hospice, another very good charity. But I'm absolutely certain that people, that members of Parliament, there are more of them, more Labour members of Parliament who support Keir Starmer than are challenging him. And I think he will defeat any challenge from Andy Burnham or anyone else.
Now, what is this great message of hope that you wish to propound in regard to Starmer's legacy? We had 0% growth in January. Yes, inflation has come down, but the Bank of England expect it to reach around 6% by the end of the year. We've got rising unemployment. We've got the highest youth unemployment in Europe. This is from the Party of Working People, who are now out of work.
So growth has gone up. The economic situation is improving. The growth is better than any other.
Are we celebrating 0.4%?
It's better than any other G7 country. And given the problems of the Middle East, which are affecting all the countries of Europe.
Of course, it's Donald's fault. It's always Donald's fault.
I agree. I'm glad you agree with that.
And it's Brexit, and it's the tariffs, and it's the Battle of Hastings and the French Revolution. Labour blame everyone except themselves.
No. That's one of the factors that has to be taken account of, and even you will have to take account of that. But nevertheless, the United Kingdom is doing relatively well. And I was at a meeting the other day with Pat McFadden, the Secretary of State for Work and Pension, explaining what is being done for young people. And it's going to be a great effort to get young people into work. What we're facing is a legacy of 14 years of a Tory government cutting expenditure. And now we're seeing a lot of money, a lot of effort being put in to give employers money to take on young employees. And that, I think, will make a great difference over the next few months.
Well, I agree with you, George. I think what we need to do is make sure that young people are in work. I've got a suggested policy. We reduce the minimum wage for school leavers and graduates, because then pubs, restaurants, cafes and other businesses will employ them.
Well, it's always easy for you. How much are you paid, by the way?
A good number, a very healthy amount.
It's easy for people like you. You're probably paid more than a member of parliament. And it's easy for you to say, let's reduce the minimum wage. But why don't you try and live on the minimum wage for a few months? Would you do that, Mark?
Well, the issue we have
Would you do that, Mark? Would you try and live on the minimum wage for a few months?
Most definitely, and it would be very difficult, but I was on the minimum wage when I worked for Burger King in 1992 whilst an undergraduate at the University of Edinburgh. In fact, there was no minimum wage at that point, and I think I was paid £2.99 an hour, and I'd rather have had a low-paid job than no job, and that's where we are. That's the problem with increasing the minimum wage for young people, is it creates youth unemployment. George, businesses employ young people because they're cheap. If they cease to be cheap, employ them, they will not.
They've got to employ someone, and I'm really worried. I went to the Edinburgh University as well, and I'm really worried now about our reputation, given that you went there and you're saying such nonsense, and you're so cruel to young people of today. Young people today need to be given a reasonable amount, and the minimum wage is not a lot of money to live on these days. And it is astonishing that given the education, given the way that you were funded in Edinburgh University for your education, that you should now be challenging young people getting just a basic minimum wage to do a decent job.
Well, George, I mean, I take your point, and I understand. You're absolutely right, George. I would struggle on the minimum wage. In fact, I would go under because of my financial commitments. You are right about that. But as a young person, if I was 18 and I've just left school, I would rather have a low-paid job than no job, and that's where we are.
No, it's not true. There are
the highest youth unemployment in Europe, George.
You can't run a burger.
Do you know what? Pour yourself another Pimm's and let's get grown up about this.
No, look, don't talk nonsense. Don't make these stupid, aggressive comments about drinking. I'm not drinking, and even on a day like today. But as far as I'm concerned, young people deserve to be paid a reasonable amount, and I would hope that you would come along and recognise that as well.
And George, you don't take the view that a low-paid job is better than no job.
But there is a job. How can you run a burger joint without people working in it?
Well, companies are not, no, because they're laying people off. What they're doing is they're giving existing staff longer hours. And the CBI have said that this increase in the minimum wage is really bad news for casual workers.
No, that's not the case.
And that's before we get to the next raid on part-timers, by the way.
Younger people are getting the job. And as I'm saying, that what Pat McFadden has proposed is a great deal of extra finance to employers to take on young employees. £3,000 is being given to an employer to take on a young employee. You know that?
Yes, but what is the point in giving with one hand and taking with the other? Why not let companies decide how much they pay their people?
Because otherwise people would be paid too little.
But this is what Labour do. They create a problem and then they fix it with more borrowing and taxation. Leave it to the market, George.
The market doesn't work. In the way we saw, people get screwed and ground under by the forces of the market. People like you get paid huge amounts of money. And on the BBC, we're getting people coming on paid more than the Prime Minister to challenge and question what the government is doing. I would like to see people like you starting to take some responsibility and maybe stand for election for a council or for the government, so that you would see the difficulties of reconciling some of the pressures that ministers and members of Parliament have to face.
Well, George, a real treat to have you on the show. We were both undergraduates at the University of Edinburgh, and I've got no doubt that in due course there will be a bust of each of us in the Edinburgh University Library.
Well, I'm not seeking that, but it would be fun.
In fact, I think you might get a bit more. I'll get a bust, you'll get a blue plaque. George,
I was there yesterday. I saw the marathon yesterday, leaving from the University of Edinburgh, and my grandson's fiance took part in the marathon, and she did very well. She finished in just over 4 hours.
Congratulations. That's a great time. George, we always love having you on the show. Thank you so much for your wise thoughts and your valuable time. My thanks to Lord Foulkes, Labour peer, who actually believes that Andy Burnham will win this by-election but not become Prime Minister. There's a surprise. It is exactly 90 minutes past 2. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? What do you think? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Child abuse will never go away, and the men in these gangs will do everything in their power to continue to abuse children if they see that the state is not serious about tackling it. And you know, that's the problem. I mean, there's Fiona, you're showing there. You know, she's fought for 20 years. It shouldn't take 20 years to get a council to say we are going to look at, you know, industrial scale rape of children by men who are old enough to be the granddads.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh dear, go woke, no smoke, net zero bites again. Energy bills are to rise by £75 to cover debts of struggling households. Will it work? What do we make of this policy? Let's get the views of Andy Mayer, energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Hi, Andy.
Hi there.
Really good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. So household energy bills will rise by at least £75 a year to cover unpaid debts from customers who dodge paying their suppliers. According to EDF, the electricity giant, which supplies 5 million customers, said household debt was out of control and would hit £7 billion next year amid the cost of living crisis and an emerging culture of non-payment. What's your reaction, Andy?
Well, this isn't a new problem. It's just one that's been amplified by the rising price of energy this year, in particular reaction to the rising energy bills related to the Gulf. And it's also related to what happened 4 or 5 years ago when we had the Ukraine crisis starting. Where there you've got a lot of supplier companies failing, and the debt from those failures is still on the bills. So going back even further, what we have is a government, successive governments that have decided to try and make sure we have a system that never lets anybody go without energy, so never cuts anybody off.
Yeah.
And that's really expensive. It's treating energy companies like welfare providers, which they're not. And then obviously the people who pay for that are not the energy companies, but us. So it gets redistributed onto the bills. So you get not very rich people paying the energy bills of slightly less rich people. And whenever the bills rise, obviously there are a higher level of debt failures. So the underlying problem is that you can't do that. You've got to have a system in which the prices of energy accurately reflect what it costs. And then if people refuse to pay that, then they get their energy cut off or put into some kind of scheme that means they are actually responsible. Or you try and deal with it through the general welfare system, such that if you have a genuine supply shock, like the Gulf issue, then you allow welfare to temporarily rise to deal with it, to help vulnerable households. But the way they're doing it's really expensive. It's just making companies that have no idea how to help people with difficulties responsible for what is generally the responsibility of government.
And meanwhile, we have the elephant in the room, don't we, Andy, of household debt running at £7 billion by next year. That is a worrying portent for the future stability of this country.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, they're going to have to write off some debt or come up with some miracle growth plan while paying these bills back. And no government of any stripe has yet been prepared to grip that. Instead, they prefer to make spending promises because people like spending promises. They imagine that other people will pay for them, but they don't. I mean, eventually those bills land and we get progressively poorer and poorer compared with the rest of the world.
With all this household debt and indeed sovereign debt that we now have, I believe it's more expensive for the UK to raise money on the international bond markets than Greece, who were effectively bankrupt in 2009. Does it stick in the craw, Andy, that we spent about £500 billion trying to stop a virus during the pandemic?
Not especially. I mean, one of the things that most people agree, even if they're free market like me, is that the government does have certain responsibilities to manage crises, and dealing with the pandemic is one of those. And we can argue that the way they dealt with it was absolutely atrocious, and there are reasonable cases there. But that was the choice they made. And plenty of governments have made bad choices over the years, from, for example, 20th century nuclear power, which we're still paying for today, all the way through to net zero, which is potentially going to put up those energy bills permanently, doubling them for the rest of our lifetimes. So in the scheme of things, COVID was bad, but it was one of many bad decisions that governments have made over the years. And sometimes they would be better off being prepared to take the risk that things don't always go perfectly, and that people do have to accept the downside of things where you just can't share the cost.
I tend to agree with you on that. Now, Andy, Britain's top 4 energy quangos have seen costs balloon and staff numbers surge by up to 380%. amid Ed Miliband's net zero push. What do you make of this story?
Well, this is a really good piece of work, I think, by the Taxpayers Alliance that have looked into this. And it does highlight a real cost associated with net zero, that as things get more complicated, you get these little schemes and additional schemes put onto the bills. You have to have bureaucrats there to manage them. But if we look at the overall cost, then the quango costs are about 1 to 3% of that overall cost. So the real problem is the policy. If the policy changes, you lose the quango. So if, for example, a future government decided to cancel the Climate Change Act, something like the Low Carbon Contracts Company, which is one of those cited in the report, would then reduce staff over time as those contracts expired. But it's very difficult to stop them altogether because these contracts are extremely well made and extremely difficult for governments to break.
Andy, as you well know, we're having an unseasonably hot May. Many would argue that the planet's temperatures are rising. We've got to do something about it, that climate change is real. Does that speak for net zero targets or not?
Well, I certainly agree that it's a very bad thing if the planet continues to warm at a rate that we can't sustain. But all the evidence is we can cope. And the way we cope is by, firstly, on adaptation. We have things like air conditioning to deal with hotter temperatures. We are by no means the hottest country in the world. There are plenty of places that cope with temperatures higher than we're experiencing
and us
today.
doing net zero, there's no evidence that that will do anything to the planet's temperatures.
Well, the mitigation side eventually you would assume would work because you would replace the fossil fuel economy with something that was low carbon. But the argument between people like me and people advocating for net zero is this central planning approach. The government cannot predict when this would happen. They can't dictate innovation. They can't dictate how much innovation will cost. And they would be better off letting people experiment and compete in a marketplace in order to get down the cost of this transition as fast as possible. And they're doing the exact opposite, which is why we have some of the highest energy bills in the world.
Andy, if you were the Energy Secretary, what would your policy be?
I would put most of the current policy into a bad bank. I mean, I don't take the view we can just cancel it all because then we would end up with a very severe crisis as people took their wind farms offline and there's nothing there yet to replace them. But we're going to have to pay for that, unfortunately. But I would then recreate a market where these technologies can compete with each other, perhaps with a very low carbon price so that we remain internationally competitive. And then you would probably see an explosion of things like competition between small nuclear providers and a gradual replacement of things like gas power at an appropriate pace that meant that the cost stayed down.
Yes, I think what you're saying overall, Andy, is an energy mix, which was the sensible view about 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and what we've done is we've given up the idea of an energy mix and, as you say, a degree of market competition, and we've replaced it with the ideology of net zero, almost a religion.
Almost, yeah. I mean, it goes back to a very simple thing, which is that politicians have promised the public they can control the global thermostat, and they clearly can't. And in making that promise and then say, well, we'll deliver on this promise by all these different plans and schemes and subsidies and taxes, the public are entirely convinced that this is the thing that they need to do, even when they can see the results, which are these ever-rising energy bills. So at some point, that consensus will be broken, and that seems to be what's happening at the moment. And a government will come in that says this stop. And it just really is a question of how chaotic that transition back to a more sensible approach is going to be. And I hope it will be done in a very sensible and measured way.
Andy, brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you so much for making the time this afternoon. Andy Mayer is an energy analyst at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Net zero feels a little bit like HS2, doesn't it? Or in my view, the COVID pandemic response. Yes, it was a nasty virus, but we borrowed billions to pay healthy people to stay at home, which is why we are now facing such major financial challenges. I have to say, I sat here in this studio 6 years ago making those points, but here we are. Mary's in Hemel Hempstead. Hello, Mary.
Afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mary. Now, listen, let's talk about my interview with Lord Foulkes. It's got a big reaction. In fact, the switchboard has melted. He has said that we've got to boost the minimum wage for young people. They cannot be working under slave labour conditions.
The point is that this government has undermined businesses that employ them, so there aren't the employers out there anyway. But regarding to Lord Foulkes, I've heard him before on the radio, and his blind faith in the Labour Party is really quite dangerous. This is a man who sits in the House of Lords, don't ask me why or how, draws, nearly £400 a day to be there,
yep,
and makes decisions for us, and yet he is completely childlike almost in his adoration for what was Labour. But this party we have now is not true Labour. So he's completely delusional, and I really feel that he is quite dangerous.
I agree with you, Mary. I mean, I think that anyone that thinks that Starmer is somehow you know, the second coming, walks on water, big fan of Andy Burnham as well, then there's definitely a problem. Mary, we will speak soon. Thank you for your call. My goodness, this Nicola Sturgeon story, this scandal of all the freebies, £500,000 almost was stolen from the SNP by the spouse of the former First Minister. Is this the final nail in the coffin of her legacy in Scotland? We'll get the views of Scotland's finest comedian next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Peter Murrell, who is the former partner of ex-Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, faces jail for embezzling almost £500,000 from the SNP to pay for a ludicrous litany of personal treats, including a motorhome and very expensive salt cellars and pepper grinders. Well, let's get reaction now to this crazy story from the former Scottish Comedian of the Year, Leo Kearse. Hi, Leo. Sometimes the comedy just writes itself, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, some people are saying that this is evidence that Nicola Sturgeon was, in fact, just in a marriage of convenience to Peter Murrell. There's been questions and allegations and rumours over her sexuality for years, and people are saying, well, this proves it. If she didn't notice a Jaguar turning up in the driveway, if she didn't notice a £6,000 coffee machine appearing in the kitchen, this shows she wasn't at the family home. I think that's nonsense. I think this is just pure rumour and conjecture. I think what really happened is that Nicola Sturgeon was having so much vigorous heterosexual sex with Peter Murrell.
Well, I've got to tell you, unfortunately, just as he's become very entertaining, dropping a few truth bombs, the line to Leo Kearse has dropped out. I never liked Nicola Sturgeon. I think that she's a very duplicitous politician, shifty. I never trusted her. And I think you only have to look at the end result of the SNP's years and years in power. It's become a one-party state. They've got the highest drug deaths in Europe. They've got huge amounts of alcoholism and antisocial disorder. They've also got, by the way, shocking educational outcomes. It's been a race to the bottom for Scotland's society and for their democracy since she took control. Here's a clip of Nicola Sturgeon speaking about the SNP's finances in 2021.
I'm not concerned about the party's finances. The finances of the SNP are independently audited. Our accounts are sent to the Electoral Commission in common with other parties and, of course, published, so there's full scrutiny around that. Money hasn't gone missing. All money goes through the SNP accounts, independently and fully audited. We don't hold separate accounts. We're under no legal requirement to do that. Our accounts are managed on a cash flow basis, but every penny we raise to support the campaign for independence will be spent on the campaign for independence.
Of course, she's got her fans and her detractors, Leo Kearse, but do you think that Nicola Sturgeon can rehabilitate her image following this scandal?
No, I don't think she can. I think this exposes not just the sort of corruption that's in Scotland, because Scotland is a remarkably corrupt country. It's sort of like a banana republic without the bananas and with worse weather. Because it's a small country, it's incestuous. People know each other. Also, the government controls a huge proportion of the economy. So, grants and funding from the government is incredibly influential. So there's a lot of backhanders and things like that. And there just isn't, because it's a small country, there isn't the level of oversight you get in a larger parliament, such as Westminster. And a lot of the media outlets try to kowtow to the SNP because they want the SNP to fund them, to place adverts, and when the government's running a campaign for whatever it is, eating fewer deep fried Mars bars, they want those adverts to go into their newspapers. But the thing that's really damaging for Nicola Sturgeon is that this wasn't just public money. This wasn't, taxpayers' money. This was money that people who fervently believed in the SNP, people who believed in independence, money that they'd given to the SNP to forward the cause of independence. And that's what Peter Murrell then took and spent on his luxury pencil sharpeners and all this nonsensical. Who even wants a £110 pencil sharpener? You know what I mean? Like they can't even embezzle properly. It's like, at least do something. Like Imelda Marcos should have been giving these guys some tips. And Nicola Sturgeon says, "Oh, she knew nothing. She knew nothing at all." Well, we'll see. We'll see about that, Nicola.
And isn't it ironic, Leo, how these lefties lust after money?
Yeah, and how terrible they are at spending money. I mean, Peter Murrell spent, £4,000 on a pen? Well, I've got a pen right here. It's got like 4 colours on it. 4 colours on it. It cost me £7. So I'm getting a better quality of pen for a fraction of the price. Maybe I should be in charge of procurement in the Scottish government. Yeah, I thought Scottish people were supposed to be good with their money. I thought they were canny. They haggled. But I guess when you're spending other people's money, stuff like that doesn't matter. You don't need to worry about getting the best possible deal. But there must be some absolutely furious SNP supporters right now who are furious that their money that went towards independence instead went on Peter Murrell's financial independence. It was absolutely stolen and wasted. Although I sort of feel the same way about this money as I do about the BLM fraud. I think the cause of independence, the cause of BLM was so obnoxious and so terrible. I'd rather the money was embezzled and somebody had some fun with it. Somebody bought a Fabergé egg or a Jaguar or whatever they want to buy. That's a better outcome for the money than this. And if you want to see me rip into the SNP and rip into Keir Starmer, you can see me on my tour, which is coming to Gosport this Friday. So get tickets at leokearse.com.
leokearse.com for Gosport. And listen, you're one of the country's finest comedians, former Scottish Comedian of the Year, and your YouTube channel is outstanding as well and doing great numbers because of the wit and because of the truth bombs. Why are the Scottish people, why are so many Scottish voters still keeping faith with the SNP, Leo?
Well, I think it's not because Scotland's a sort of naturally far left country, like the SNP would have you believe. It's just this clarion call for independence. It's an incredibly emotive cry. The way they talk, you'd think they're William Wallace instead of a bunch of fat communists. But this call for independence, strikes at the chord. It's like Brexit. People get very emotionally invested in something that's about, their country's nationality and its sovereignty. But really, Scotland has a long and proud tradition of being a huge part of the British Isles. It's not like when I moved down to London 25 years ago, there were so many Scots working in the police, working in the civil service. It really felt that Scotland was a driving force behind Britain. And now I feel like because the SNP have sort of pulled back, they've made Scotland a much more sort of insular, inward-looking place, and they fund university places for Scottish Scottish kids, Scottish young people, so they stay in Scotland. They don't leave. They don't come down to the capital and mix with England. I think it's been really damaging for Scotland. But I think if Scotland did get independence, it would backfire on the SNP hugely. You know, without that bugle call for independence, Scotland is a naturally conservative place. Within a couple of electoral cycles, Scotland would revert to being, quite a conservatively governed place, which could actually be, the better thing for Scotland.
Well, of course, and we know that Scotland has an amazing tradition when it comes to business and commerce, which is why Edinburgh and Glasgow are such incredibly salubrious and grand cities. Scotland has a rich history of trading and of commercial success.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the profit margins you see on a wrap of heroin, it's really, Alan Sugar would be jealous.
He'd be licking his lips. Can I ask you about Labour, the reform proving very popular in Scotland, which many people didn't see coming?
Yeah, again, I think it's the fact that Scotland is actually a naturally quite conservative place. So there's a lot of people who want to see change, but not the change that the SNP or various other communists like the Green Party are selling. So reform, I think, could do incredibly well at the next election, and I think. There's a strong streak throughout Scotland that's very patriotic and very loyal to Britain, and I think reform can hit that. And another thing that's going to affect Scotland and going to affect the vote, for a long time, I've seen Scottish friends almost look down on England as being racist and being antediluvian with their attitudes to mass immigration and refugees, and that's purely because Scotland didn't have so many. Scotland didn't have so many, but the SNP have made it their mission to bring in as many of these refugees and asylum seekers who are essentially all just fighting age men who are gaming the system. They want to bring them in because they think they're going to vote left wing in the future. So they're bringing these guys in, and it's having a huge impact in Scotland. If you look at even my hometown, Dumfries, like it was just a sleepy rural market town, beautiful place, not just a really nice place, and you'd think it's the furthest place away from all these issues. They've opened an asylum hotel in Dumfries, and what do you know? The asylum seekers have been going down to local schools. They've been harassing girls in the town centre. They've actually handed out rape whistles to girls in the schools, which is, I mean, that's disgusting. That's not dealing with the issue. And also, you know how these men operate. I mean, if you blow a whistle, it's just going to alert other asylum seekers to the fact that there's a rape going on, so they can come and join in.
I mean, the whole thing is wild, isn't it? We had a Reform UK politician apologising for saying that she was born and bred in a certain part of Scotland. Apparently that's not politically correct. We've had gender self-ID, in which someone can just wake up in the morning and decide, I'm a lady today, which was one of the things that finished Nicola Sturgeon's career, because it saw the accommodation of a double rapist in a women's prison, Isla Bryson. Is Scotland the most woke country in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the whole of Europe, but it's certainly going for it. I think you see with these, devolution was such a disaster for Britain because it created these satellite parliaments that don't work in coherence with Westminster. They fight against it. They try to extract resources from Westminster, try and blackmail Westminster, and just moan and complain. And because they're freed from the concerns of having to actually run a country, because it's just a devolved parliament, they can be as woke and as ridiculous as they like. I mean, I think an independent Scotland would very quickly, if it was run by the SNP, very quickly run into absolute catastrophe because their economic policies are disastrous. They want to raise taxes, they want to over-regulate business, they want to introduce rent controls. If there's a terrible political idea out there, the SNP want to implement it. So yeah, Scotland, I don't know if it's the wokest in Europe, but it's certainly up there. It's certainly woker than you'd want.
It is, and they've assaulted free speech in a way that would have even Keir Starmer blushing, haven't they?
Yeah, the hate crime bill, which was concocted by Humza Yousaf, who at the time was the Justice Minister, and later stood. He replaced Nicola Sturgeon as the First Minister. And I mean, this is an incredibly draconian bill. I ran against him to raise awareness of this piece of legislation because it essentially criminalised stage performances. It criminalised jokes that you make inside your own home, which, you know, this is, if we look at British law and the sort of precedents of British law, we've never had laws like that. We've never had, you know, the police being able to kick down your door because you told a joke at your own dinner table. Like the home is always the sanctity where you can escape from the state. And, you know, for stage performances to be criminalized, you know, if you're putting on a play that's got something that somebody finds offensive, because people can just decide to find something offensive, and that makes it offensive in the eyes of the hate crime bill. So I ran against this. I ran against this bill. I ran for Parliament to raise awareness, and at the time I warned left-wing comedians, because obviously most comedians in Scotland are incredibly left-wing. I think I'm the only right-wing one. You should catch me on tour. Tickets at leokears.com. But I'd said to the left-wing comedians, because they all told me, "Oh, you just want to be able to say horrible, racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic things." And it's like, yeah, I do, but also they're going to come for you. And lo and behold, they have. You see comedians from the left, like Jerry Sadowitz, like Reginald D. Hunter, now getting attacked using hate speech legislation. This is something that isn't just going to be used for, you know, despicable right-wing bigots like me. It's going to be used against everyone, and it's going to absolutely stifle artistic expression. So, yeah, I mean, these laws need to be absolutely wiped from the books.
I think we've got time for a very, very quick round of the SNP game show. Yes, OK, folks, cue the music, because before we let you go, Leo, I'd like to quiz you on some of the items allegedly purchased by Peter Murrell from money stolen from the SNP. So cue the music. And Leo, let me ask you, how much do you think a pair of OXO Good Grips egg poacher sets would cost you?
Oh my God! Oh, you used stolen money for that? It's like you've got the money for that, Peter. It can't be more than like what, $11.99?
$23.98. What about a Victorinox bike tool kit on your bike, Nicola? How much would that cost you?
Victorinox, that's expensive. I've seen those knives. That's got to be £48.
£22.41.
Oh.
It's going to be third time lucky. Don't worry about that. What about a Joseph bread bin? Because we know that this couple love bread, don't they? The Wonga.
A bread bin? Yes. Did they stuff all the money in it, all the Scottish banknotes that they can't even spend anywhere? Because that's another thing. It's impressive that this guy managed to embezzle all the Scottish money and spend it in places when everybody's holding that £10 up and checking it. I would say for a luxury bread bin, that's got to be £60.
You are bang on. He gets the points. Exactly 60 quid. Shows how middle class you are. You've probably got one at home. Leo, congratulations on the tour. You're selling tickets fast. leokears.com. Go and see Leo, a very, very funny man indeed, as you've just discovered. And go and subscribe to his brilliant YouTube as well. Pithy, punchy, and hilarious. You get used to this music. Very good for ratings, Finley. OK, lots more to come, folks. We're having a big conversation this afternoon. We're talking about the divided right. Many people think that Andy Burnham is going to win the Makerfield by-election because of the split between the Tories, Reform and Restore. So is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? This is Talk.
child abuse will never go away, and the men in these gangs will do everything in their power to continue to abuse children if they see that the state is not serious about tackling it. And you know, that's the problem. I mean, there's Fiona, aren't you showing there? You know, she's fought for 20 years. It shouldn't take 20 years to get a council to say we are going to look at, you know, industrial scale rape of children by men who are old enough to be the granddads.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? My problem is I like Nigel and I like Rupert. How do you square that circle? Mark is in Exeter. Hello, Mark.
Like you, I like Nigel and Rupert, but I don't think Rupert is going to win it. And I cannot get the suicidal kamikaze tendency of the voters with only 7% voting in and giving us a Burnham. I just do not get it.
The truth is that respectable man that he is, Rupert Lowe is never going to become Prime Minister, is he?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think there's a lot of people outside of X that find a lot of what he says and a lot of his supporters, what they stand for, are just not palatable. They just do not like him. My concern, and I'm on X a lot, and I chat to a lot of his supporters and get a lot of abuse in the process, is what do they stand for other than immigration? Because all they ever all I ever hear is millions must go.
Most definitely, and that seems to be the focus. I suppose the issue we've got, Mark, is that the number one problem in the country is border control and recent levels of immigration, and therefore perhaps it's right that Restore, focus on that, maybe to influence Nigel Farage. Is that the hope, that Rupert can be a positive influence on the party?
Very much so, and I agree with you there. I think Reform are moving more have moved slightly more to the centre than where a lot of Restore supporters would like them to be. But I think Reform are trying to win the majority vote.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? How do you see this playing out? I suspect Burnham wins Makerfield, doesn't he, Mark?
I see him winning, yeah, of course. I think it'll give a Labour a new lease of life. Whether they'll win again in 2029, we'll see. But
well, Mark, I've got another prediction for you, though, which is I suspect that the public view general elections very differently to local elections and by-elections. And I think when it comes to choosing the next government, I suspect that Restore voters will probably fall in behind Reform in most cases.
I hope so.
Well, really people aren't stupid, are they, Mark? And they will look at the mathematics, right?
I don't think a lot of them are. I think they're very fed up with the way things are, and I think they just want something a little more hard-hitting, a bit more, you know.
Well, I think that's right, Mark. Can I ask you, how are conditions in Exeter? I would imagine it is stunning this afternoon.
Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Actually, I'm not in Exeter. I'm just outside of Exeter, but I'm not far from the sea, so it's lovely.
Nice for an afternoon grazing walk. Maybe an outdoor pint somewhere, Mark?
Maybe after. I'm sort of working from home, or one of those working from home at the moment, but give me another couple of hours and I think that'll be on the cards.
Go and grab a local beer, you've earned it. Mark, call me again soon. Really enjoyed this conversation. Mark in Exeter there, who says, as a floating voter, I can't see what Restore is offering other than a clampdown on immigration. Let's take a voice note. We love our voice notes. This is The Divided Right, and it's Sean.
I don't think Reform will win in Makerfield. I don't think Reform will win the next general election. I think the Tories, Reform and Restore, all they're concerned about is getting one over each other. And that's a problem we're going to have. They're just the same as a Labour Party, really. They're not willing to put the national interest first, what's best for the country. All they want to do is do what's best for themselves. Great show, mate.
Sean, thank you for that. It's all about your opinions. I had a furious row with George Foulkes, Lord Foulkes, who's a Labour peer, about the minimum wage. It's my view that by increasing the minimum wage, it has priced young people out of the jobs market. My argument is that when you're 16 or 18 or 19, that a low-paid job is better than no job. Laura Jane is in Hampshire. Hi, Laura Jane.
Hi there. Yeah, I mean, we can see the economic arguments of this, but I'm just thinking about the sort of emotional, sociological argument that young people, when they first get a job, even if it's at uni, and by the way, I went to the same alma mater as you, and I don't even remember, because I'm a lot older than you, what the minimum wage was. I don't think there was a
Well, I don't think there was. It came in under New Labour and Blair.
I think I was paid £1.50 an hour for whatever it was that I did. But anyway, the point is...
But you were happy to have the job?
Of course I was, because it helped pay for going down the pub in the evening or whatever it was. I mean, you know, that was the only way. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the aspiration of young people is to earn and to be able to be independent. That's the whole point. And to be better off each time you go for a new job, you hope that you're going to earn more after your education, after if you've been to university. That is an aspiration. You start at the bottom and you climb the ladder. That's the self-satisfaction, isn't it? I mean, shouldn't that? It's not just about earning money, and it's not always fair life either. And the Labour government seem to want to go this way of universal wage, where everybody earns the same amount, and there's no satisfaction in what you do. It's about, it doesn't matter whether, you're working in Burger King and other hamburgers are sadly available, or whether you're working in, I don't know, some top company. We're all supposed to feel the same, earn the same, be the same, and think the same.
Well, this is socialism, isn't it? And it's the idea that someone working at John Lewis that's been there 20 years should be on the same rate of pay as a kid that's come in after school. That's not how it works. And briefly, LJ, companies employ people because they're cheap. If they're no longer cheap, employ them, they will not.
No, but I totally agree. But I do feel that the world of work is also about aspiration and wanting to do better each time you get a job. That is surely one of the points, is ambition and aspiration.
Unfashionable opinions these days. Laura Jane, call me soon. Brilliant, brilliant set of points you've made there. So much more to come. Edwina Curry, waiting in the wings. Furious about what's going on in the political world. We're going to get her views on Sturgeon, Burnham and much besides. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 3, Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins. All of this week, 1 till 4. Lovely to have your company. Breaking this afternoon, the most awful story. Tragedy in Belgium as a train hits a busload of children. We will bring you the latest as we get it. Meanwhile, Nicola Sturgeon's husband admits embezzling almost £500,000 from the SNP. Is this the final nail in the coffin for Sturgeon's legacy in Scotland? And a divided right in Makerfield during the by-election campaign is expected to gift Andy Burnham victory and a return to the House of Commons, potentially a stab at number 10. So is it time for voters on the right of politics to fall in behind Reform UK? Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Now, my phone number is 0344 499 1000. Faith is taking your calls. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note and let's talk. You can hear us on DAB+, in-app and online, but you can watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talk and up we pop. Just said goodbye to the brilliant Luke, who's directing our TV output. Now we have Jana in the hot seat. A very busy hour to come. Let's talk. Now I'd like to take you up to speed with what's happening north of the border, and former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has said in a statement via her lawyers, "Today the media are reporting details of items that my former husband has now admitted buying with SNP funds. I've seen questions raised about how I could not have known about this. I want to reiterate that I had no knowledge or suspicion whatsoever that personal items had been purchased using SNP funds." Well, is this the final nail in the coffin of Nicola Sturgeon's legacy in Scotland? Let's get the views of former government minister, best-selling author and radio host Edwina Currie. Good afternoon, Edwina.
Hello, Mark. May I say, you look a little hot. Shall we take pity on you?
Yes.
Jackets may be removed, as they say in Lords.
Well, the thing is, Edwina, I would remove clothes, but that will affect the ratings.
Well, they might go up.
You never know. You'll have to ask Mrs. Dolan. Edwina, it is a bit sweltering in here, although Nicola Sturgeon is most certainly sweating this afternoon.
You have to wonder, you know, she's claiming to have been present but not involved. Bit like Jeremy Corbyn at certain funerals. This has been going on for years. It's 3 years since the police really started properly investigating. And it was, I think, about 2 years before that, before it became apparent that something like £600,000 was not accounted for in the SNP accounts. It transpired they hadn't actually filed proper accounts for about 10 years under Peter Murrell. So, you know, somebody like whoever was the nearest person around with access to all the paperwork should perhaps have been saying, what the hell's going on here? And it transpired she didn't. I mean, how can you have 2 coffee machines plus a load of cheap Nescafe Gold Blend coffee as well and not think, where's all this money coming from? Why are we wasting money? Not very Scottish at all, is it?
Well, it isn't, and the couple are not rich. I was having a look at Peter Murrell's career, most of which has been in politics, which, as you know, Edwina, doesn't pay prodigiously well. He did a couple of years in PR before becoming a rather central figure in the SNP. They were not rich, and therefore someone like Nicola Sturgeon, who became First Minister, would surely have noticed these expensive items coming into the house.
You would have thought so. I mean, there was a Jaguar parked on the drive. OK, power couple, combined income over 200,000 a year, but that's gross. They'd be paying a lot of tax on that.
Yeah.
And, you know, oh, darling, you've bought yourself a new toy. Really? Isn't that a little expensive? I remember when my husband decided he was going to buy a Tesla. And I did say to him rather bluntly, and how are you going to pay for that? Making it quite clear it wasn't going to be me. And he said, I'm going to sell the Porsche. OK. How did he acquire a Porsche? Well, it was a second-hand one. It came from somebody he knew, kind of thing, who's an ex-copper. So at least, I did inquire. I did ask the question. Nicola is claiming she didn't even know. I don't believe a word of it.
These are the conversations that husbands and wives have, and that's why it stretches credibility. And this is in the context of a Scotland that has been immeasurably worsened under SNP rule.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, they got to the stage where the police were in big trouble, where actually drug taking and deaths from drug taking are amongst the highest in Europe, where there were really great anxieties about the way the Scottish economy was going under what amounted to an independence regime. But I feel for the people in the SNP, people who are interested in politics and who contribute and make their little donations and so on. They're the ones who really feel betrayed. The rest of us are highly amused and gobsmacked at it. It's a wonderful, wonderful story for anybody who believes in conspiracy theories in politics. But the people who are members of the SNP, ordinary people, sending off their 20 quid or whatever, they must be feeling absolutely gutted right now.
Well, the SNP, Edwina, looks to be incompetent and a cowboy outfit.
Well, at least one senior person in the SNP is about to go down for nicking £400,000 from it, and nobody else noticed? Pardon me.
Well, that's right. Now, Edwina, let's get to the Makerfield by-election, which is playing out as we speak. Many think that a divided right will gift this seat to Andy Burnham. Are you one of them?
There's only one reason why I'm wearing a turquoise T-shirt today. It's nothing to do with politics. It just happened to be the one at the top of the clean pile.
Have you just had lunch with Richard Tice? Are you seeing someone else, Edwina?
No, Mark, only you. You're absolutely right. The polling shows it's neck and neck between Burnham and Reform. But if the 7% who are saying to the pollsters that they would support Reform instead, then Burnham wouldn't stand a chance. And a lot of it, of course, depends on turnout. To some extent, I think Elon Musk can take some of the blame on this because he's been actively supporting Restore, who are the tail end of Reform, as it were, the Rupert Lowe lot, the Great Yarmouth lot. And he is rumoured to be giving money to them. I mean, you can't survive as a small party without dosh. You've got to be able to pay the staff, the headquarters, the website, and all that kind of thing. But if the money is coming from a multi-billionaire like Elon Musk, then you could find yourself in the big time. Something very tacky happening at the heart of our politics here, with so much money coming in from outsiders and shoring up British politics by outsiders who aren't our citizens, who don't have a vote here, trying to interfere. That I don't feel is a really good look. On the other hand, I see what Andy is doing. And it's all about vote for Andy. He's not saying vote Labour, is he?
No.
That wouldn't get him anywhere.
George Fawkes was on the show earlier, and I think he'd been on the cooking sherry, Edwina, because he thinks that Andy Burnham will win this by-election, but not remove Starmer from number 10. He thinks that Andy Burnham will serve in a very dutiful and loyal way in a Starmer cabinet. Do you agree with that?
Anything could happen. This is a political bingo, isn't it? What's the number that comes up next? Anything could happen. I mean, at the moment, the most likely thing is that Burnham would not actually win, in which case that's him, that's his career finished. He would go back to being mayor of Manchester. He hasn't resigned from that, and he will go on being a darn nuisance up our way. But if he wins, then he will stand and they will have some kind of election of the leadership. And Starmer will try and stand and maybe again split the vote. Who knows what will happen? These leadership contests, they fascinate people like me because you just don't know what the outcome's going to be, except you can usually be pretty sure these days that whoever is the front runner ain't going to get it. It's going to be somebody else.
Edwina, Andy Burnham deserves credit for aspects of economic development in the Greater Manchester area. The buses policy has been very popular. He's probably better at politics than Keir Starmer, but I don't think that he would be a better Prime Minister. I think, given the fact that if he gets into number 10, he will do so off the back of left-wing support, I'm worried they'll want their pound of flesh. I would prefer to stick with Starmer. What do you think?
Well, a hell of a lot of what Andy Burnham claims the credit for in Manchester was actually started under Margaret Thatcher and John Major. For example, the whole of the trams, which is a fabulous project and has turned Manchester into a kind of big international city and has cut costs for a lot of people. That was started under previous governments that were nothing to do with Andy Burnham. I think he saw his opportunity when the city was already doing rather well. A lot of the money that's been spent, there's been private money, the Peel Holdings, the company that owns the Manchester Ship Canal and the docks area. It's all been private money, a lot of that. So it's nothing to do with Mr. Burnham. But he's cute enough, he's smart enough to claim the credit. As and when he gets into Parliament, would he do what he has been promising during this campaign? Probably not. I mean, he's made other promises before. Our worry, of course, is that in order to sustain his position in Parliament, he would have to pander to the lefties on the back benches in order to get anything through. They're not going to vote for any kind of reform of the welfare system, which is what we desperately need. Yeah. They're not going to vote for a reduction in minimum wage, which is what young people need if they're going to get into employment. They're not going to vote for essential visas for the people that we need in the care industry. You know, there's a whole range of things that they will vote for more money. And they will vote for more of our money and for more taxes. And they're going to make life much, much harder in this country. And they're going to kill growth completely.
Most definitely. Now, Edwina, you're an experienced former politician and you are a principled but pragmatic person. You would like to see a Conservative Prime Minister in number 10 at the next election. Do you take the view that if it's Farage, so be it?
No, I don't take that view. I think Kemi Badenoch is worth an awful lot more than Farage. Farage is a very clever propagandist. That's not at all the same thing as being good at running the country. Anybody that wants to run the country after the next general election, which of course could be sooner than the 2 or 3 years that it has to be legally, but also be starting to do the work now, just like Margaret Thatcher did in the 1970s when she was leader of the opposition. When she set up think tanks and research, she asked some very fundamental questions. Some of the answers that came back were really tough ones, like, you got to control the unions, you can't keep paying them when they're on strike, because you know what, they're going to come back and strike for more, which is what's been happening under this government. And she then really struggled to put a lot of that good common sense into effect, because there's always objections, there's always the people who are going to lose out, there's always people, we call them vested interests, but they are the people who are badly affected by positive change. And right now they're sitting on the backbenches and they wear Labour garb. In future they might be sitting on the backbenches and wearing Reform garb. So no, I'd like to see a proper Tory government with a proper majority and all that homework and research done so we can move forward.
Do you think you will have to wait until the next election but one for that to happen?
Oh, bless. I think I'll be pushing up the daisies by then.
It's never going to happen. Your body's a temple, Edwina.
Thank you. Well, it's going to take a long time. It always does, for a party to recover after a really catastrophic defeat. We've seen this with the Tories. We've seen this with Labour. It does take more than one election to recover, because in the end you have to grow out of the grotty baggage that you had that led to your defeat, and you have to adapt to whatever the new world is and to have new faces. I think Kemi will be there when the time comes.
Brilliant stuff. Edwina, it's a bit of a scorcher in Derbyshire this afternoon. What do you make of these health warnings about the weather?
Oh, for heaven's sake. I mean, you know, we live in a world in which everything is a disaster. Everything is a catastrophe. Everything is dreadful. And the government or the BBC have got to warn us about the dangers of this, that and the other. It's just hot out there. If you like the heat, fine. Wear sunscreen. If you don't like it, be like me and stay indoors or somewhere cool.
It's always a scorcher when Edwina's on the show. Edwina, thank you so much. Enjoy the weather. Maybe a G&T this afternoon just to keep yourself hydrated. My thanks to politics legend, of course, best-selling author and radio broadcaster as well, former government minister Edwina Currie. Well, just as Edwina gave that explosive final answer, I can bring you the breaking news that this Tuesday that we're currently in is the hottest day in May on record. That's right, folks. This is the hottest Tuesday in May ever, as temperatures have provisionally reached 35 degrees centigrade at Heathrow and Kew Gardens in London. This according to the Met Office. Well, we're going to get reaction from legendary weather presenter John Ketley very, very shortly. But first, it's your calls. Is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain, or is Edwina right? Are the Tories going to have the mother of all comebacks at the next election? 3:17, your calls next.
If your other half came home with £125,000 worth of motorhome, wouldn't you go, darling, where did you get that from? Yeah. Have that turned up on the driveway? Where did you get the motorhome from? It's a very expensive motorhome. £81,000 Jaguar, Volkswagen Golf, partly funded with stolen cash, luxury watches over 9,000 quid, Mont Blanc pens, a £3,232 coffee machine. Like, what was the man doing?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
3:20, John Ketley, weatherman and legend, coming up shortly to talk about the hottest day in May since records began. But is Nigel Farage the only politician that can defeat the left in Britain? Anne is in Belfast. Hello, Anne.
I've been listening, and I've been listening 24/7 basically this last lot of weeks since Rupert started all this business, and I'm dumbfounded. I'm gobsmacked, and I just don't understand the political stupidity, naivety, call it what you want, over somebody's ego. I mean, the truth is, Rupert. The first time I heard him speak, I thought he was fantastic, to be honest with you. I thought this is a man was going somewhere. But he really loved the applaud and standing ovation. I think it went to his head a wee bit. Then he started trying to make demands. And then when he couldn't get his own way, he went to the newspaper, which is a no-no. And then I believe that there was threats made, and he gets kicked out of the party. So what does he do? Opens up his own. And of course, then we have Elon Musk sticking his nose in. And no harm to Elon Musk, but he doesn't know anything about the British voting public and what they vote for and what they don't vote for, and what they like and what they don't, and what they will stand for and what they won't. And of course, he's egging this on because he doesn't like what Nigel stood up to him and said no. He wasn't going to tell him what to do, even if he was, dangling $100 million of funding. And Nigel just told him where to go. So then he looked around and he thought, oh, there's Rupert, I'll get him. So
well, I agree. I mean, I think Nigel falling out with Elon is great credit to Nigel, because it shows that the leader of Reform UK can't be bought.
Of course it does. Of course it does. And there we have Rupert Statner. He'll take the money. Of course he will. And of course, I don't know what Elon has done with the social media. I mean, I'm on X, so I'm seeing it, I'm watching it, and I can't believe what I'm watching. But he's put out a couple of these tweets, and millions of people have liked them. And all of a sudden, Rupert's getting millions, hundreds of thousands of likes on his tweets and stuff that he's putting out utter garbage, to be honest with you. And what these people really think, they're so naive.
But Anne, what would you say to Restore supporters, fans of Rupert Lowe, who feel that he is a true conservative, a true patriot, that he's the real deal, the people who think Nigel is a sellout?
I'm just gobsmacked. They actually believe this. I mean, Rupert Lowe's son had a wedding a couple of days ago where he married a Muslim lady, and they served halal at the wedding. These people are running about, we're going to ban halal. Rupert's serving it at his son's wedding. You can't get any more preposterous than that.
And Anne, if we're looking at the two men, Rupert versus Nigel, why do you have more faith in Nigel the man?
Because Nigel's been saying, and I'm not a member of Reform, by the way, Nigel's been saying the same thing for 25 years. He doesn't change his mind. The goal is still there. Rupert's new to the party. He's got a few likes and he's got a few starting evasions, and it's gone to his head. He's not going to be Prime Minister because the British voting public won't go there.
Nigel has walked the hard yards over decades, hasn't he? He's battled in the European Parliament. He got Brexit. Would never have happened without him. He called out the debanking scandal. He's probably going to win the next general election. He was in Dover 10 years ago talking about the boats. They called him crazy. They called him racist.
And we're laughing at him, but they're not laughing now. I've been watching him for like 15 years. And this is where he's going. This is where he's meant to be. And he's doing it for us. He's doing it for us. He's not doing it for himself. He's not doing it for applause. He's not doing it for likes or for pats on the back from Elon Musk. He's doing it because he knows he has to do it, and that he is our last chance. And the people that Rupert have attracted are those people from the likes of, I'm not going to say that lot because I'm one of that lot, but they're patriotic alternative. They're the National Front. They're the BNP. The British voting public will not have it. And Rupert needs to understand that. But I don't think Rupert cares. I think Rupert knows. And I think Rupert knows that he hasn't got a hope in hell. But I think Rupert's on a mission to destroy Nigel. And that's all that matters. Same with Ben. I thought Ben was absolutely fabulous.
Ben Habib.
Absolutely fabulous. But that's when Nigel wasn't in the party. And then Nigel was supposed to be coming back. And Rishi, of course, called the election soon, what he didn't need to do, so that Nigel wouldn't have the time. And Nigel pulled out. And Ben went on to the television, I don't know whether it was GB News or talkTV, and called Nigel a liar. And that was him out of the party. So what does he do? He throws his toys out of the pram as well and thinks, I'm going to I'm going to start my party. I'm going to be advanced. These people are big things in their own heads. They just don't seem to get it.
And I can hear the emotion in your voice. This isn't a game for you, is it?
Well, let's put it like this. It isn't a game for anybody that cares about the country because we're finished. We're finished. And that's where we are, Mark. The country is finished. If Labour gets in for a second term, and what do we have? What do we have? We have Kemi, we have Rupert, we have the Greens, and we have the Ed Davies, God help us. They're all getting together in the few councils that they're on to try to keep reform out. Kemi, a Conservative, getting into bed with the Lib Dems and the Greens. What's wrong with them?
And before I let you go, Anne, because I've got a full switchboard, but you've made so many powerful points and you've spoken so well. When you say the country's finished, in what way? What are your big worries?
Well, let's say we're losing our identity. For a start.
Yeah.
Is that not enough?
Is
that not enough?
It should be enough. It should be enough because identity is existential, isn't it, Anne?
Well, I know what it's like. I'm in County Down. I never really got interested in politics, Mark, until Tony Blair destroyed this country. And that was a country that had been at war for 30 years, and we were managing until he got involved, and he destroyed us. Absolutely destroyed us. Gives terrorists, walking letters, pardons, millions and millions of pounds to terrorist murderers to let them out onto the street, in the Parliament, in Stormont, running the country, multi-millionaires, all of them.
And of course, former British soldiers who were just doing their job, serving their duty, now being prosecuted. And you must call me again soon. It's been a really, really compelling conversation. I'm so grateful for your passion, for your eloquence, and your general comments, which have been really, really a great, great part of this conversation. Anne in Belfast there. Restore are only going to give Labour a second term. Michael's in Birmingham, England's second city. Hello, Michael.
Yeah, hi, how you doing?
Follow that.
Well, yeah, I think I probably can. Is that, look, what the right needs to do is take a scientific approach, and this goes for the voters. And I'm frustrated Reform aren't saying this. I haven't heard them saying this. Look, if we win, if Reform win in Makerfield, it's existential to Labour. It really torpedoes them below the waterline.
Yeah.
So even for this one election, this one by-election, the common cause has got to be to damage Labour. And the way they're going to do that is Reform, because the Tories aren't going to win it, Restore aren't going to win it. My only suspicion, though, and I've got no basis for this, something funny's going on with Restore. I wonder if there's some false flag lefties hiding in there, building it up, just to try and divide the vote on the right. I'm not saying that Rupert Lowe knows about it, but they could have slipped through the net because there's something weird about it. Because anybody with half a brain cell would know the more you splinter Reform's vote, the more chance Labour are going to get in for the second term. The lady before feared before, and I fear it's
Michael, I think you're right, and I think actually you have followed Anna very effectively, because what you're saying is that if you're a radical leftist in Makerfield, your best bet is to vote Restore.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, of course it is, yeah, and divide that vote on the right. And what they need to do is, it's a simple Venn diagram used in science. What's the overlapping theme of all the right parties to keep the left out? And what's the overlapping theme in Labour and the Greens? To keep Reform out. So what you do is you vote on the best possible chance you've got of doing that.
Michael, do you agree with my last caller, Anna, that if the left win the next election, the country's finished?
Yes. My fear is that they're well on the way to finishing it before the next election. They're gerrymandering the age of voting. They're gerrymandering the population through recent arrivals and mass granting of citizenship.
Sectarian votes.
Sectarian votes. I mean, I live in a where my constituency is the Gaza Party that's second to Jess Phillips by a couple of hundred votes, and so that's where we are. And by the way, if there was an election tomorrow, I would vote for the Gaza Party before I vote for Jess Phillips. Trust me, I would.
Wow.
Just to get rid of her.
And Michael, what about the next election? Do you think it's different at a general election? Do you think that at the general election, Restore voters will look at the mathematics and back Farage?
I hope they see sense and do that, because I mean, look, there's no point in coming a gallant second under our electoral system. There's no point whatsoever. You have to vote for whoever you think. Look, I said it at the top of my call. The common cause must be to get rid of Labour. That's what Restore, the Conservatives and Reform want. So for goodness sake, use your brains and do the best that gets out. If you live in a constituency where the Conservatives are the second, well, if you're a Reform voter, vote Conservative then. You know, just basically do that. And just as a matter of interest, my dream ticket for the Right Unite thing would be Kemi as the leader, because I think she's an absolute jewel. I think she is a polished diamond of a politician.
Well, she's done a very good job. She's found her voice. She's comfortable in her own skin, isn't she? I wonder whether she's the right leader, the wrong party, Michael.
I think so. And also, just to completely defeat my logic, I think she'd be the best-looking Prime Minister we've ever had, if I'm allowed to say that.
Oh, she's a very stunning woman, I'll give you that. She's a fine, fine lady. We can agree on that, Michael. We agreed on a lot. Please call me again soon. Have an excellent Tuesday afternoon. Keep that aircon on in the car. Michael in Birmingham there. Everyone on the right needs to work together to beat Labour by voting for reform, is his view. We'll continue this very shortly. It is 3:32. You're listening to Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we have breaking news at 3:34 in the afternoon. This Tuesday, today, the day that we're in, is the hottest day in May on record, as temperatures have provisionally reached 35 degrees centigrade at Heathrow and Kew Gardens in London. This according to the Met Office. But who cares what the Met Office think? I couldn't give two figs about the Met Office. Do you know why? Because joining us down the line is the meteorological legend and iconic weatherman, John Ketley. And that's where you'll get the facts about temperatures. Hi, John.
Hello there, Mark. Good afternoon.
Met Office, Schmet Office, what do you think?
I got some very good training at the Met Office for 30 years, and then I decided to opt out and jump ship and go on my own way. And very pleased I did as well. But you're absolutely right. It is a record, 35 degrees this afternoon, just a few minutes ago. So yesterday's record didn't last long, did it? Just one day, 34.8 at Kew Gardens. But these are unusual times. I've got to say, it is the hottest weather we've ever seen in May.
Most definitely. What sort of weather are we supposed to have in May, John?
Well, very often we do get a nice warm spell in the latter part of May, but let's not forget, before this heat wave arrived, about the 19th, 20th, we did actually see some very cool conditions at the start of the month, and that's fairly normal. So May was running a degree or so cooler than the long-term average. So who was getting excited about that? Well, certainly not me. But on the whole, we do tend to warm up at the end of May, and then we'll often see these hotter conditions moving in and out during June, July and August. But the problem with this country is, as you know, Mark, the weather in the summer in Britain is very unreliable. You couldn't book a holiday, for example. You couldn't book a staycation as of now. in 6 weeks' time and guarantee hot, sunny weather. It just wouldn't happen, and I'm afraid that's the world we're living in.
Is the weather, John, a bit like a credit card? Do you pay for the good weather with bad weather later?
What I've always said is we don't want to peak too soon, and this is slightly worrying because if you get this hot weather so early in the year, then you just wonder what might lie ahead. So there is a payoff. Obviously, there's a payoff. The British weather, as I say, it's just so unreliable. It's not unpredictable. I've always argued about that. It is perfectly predictable, but only for about a couple of weeks at a time. But it's just not reliable in different parts of the country. Even today, of course, we've seen different weather in different parts of the UK. And the latest crop of thunderstorms are now beginning to break out. I've got the radar open and it's banging away at the moment around Sheffield and Doncaster, and a new shower developing near Leicester as well off the A46. So that's what's going to happen now for the rest of the day. There's going to be rain about.
John, in terms of discomfort for my viewers and listeners, is that all about humidity?
Yeah, humidity is a nasty thing. It's something that we can't cope with in this country. And if you go back, 50 years ago to that infamous summer heat wave of 1976, which I remember very well. I'm not sure you would do, Mark. But nonetheless,
I was knee deep to a grasshopper at that point, about 2 years of age.
Of course you would be, but I was working, and it was really uncomfortable in those days because there was no such thing as air conditioning in your house or in your car or at work either. So air conditioning hadn't really come in, and it was very, very tough going back in those days. I think today there is some respite from it, but people are still stupid sometimes. Sadly, we've heard about at least 4 people dying in cold water, jumping into cold water from the hot air.
Well, that's right. It's very tragic, isn't it, John? People don't realise because it's incredibly warm air and the sun is out. Yeah. You think it'll be refreshing to dive into the cold water, but these lakes and rivers, they're running winter temperatures still, aren't they?
Of course they are. And even around the coast, we're still only about 14 degrees probably on the south coast. I don't know, I haven't checked. And right on the foreshore, say down in the south coast at Bournemouth, where it's absolutely packed again today, the waters are very shallow and it feels quite nice. But you go out another 3 feet and it gets very cold very quickly, and it doesn't really improve all through the summer, does it? We only get to about 18 and 19 degrees on the south coast. So it is tough going, really. This country is still surrounded by pretty chilly water at the height of summer, and at the moment it's still warming up after a cold spring.
And John, you've always been very mild-mannered, even-handed, if you like, about the issue of climate change. You've got quite a sensible overview, haven't you? You're not radically one way or the other, but would you say this hot May is definitely related to that issue?
Oh, I will go with that one. I will go for the fact that we're not in climate meltdown. It's not that, but we are really seeing the effects of the warming world, if you like, the global warming that's going on and has been for the last 25 years. Things have changed since the turn of the century. But of course, and I always refer back to this, Mark, we started talking like this back in 2003. And then we had another very hot summer in 2006. Temperatures got to 38 degrees in both those summers. And it looked like it was a sign of things to come for the next 20, 25 years up until now. Well, we know it hasn't been like that because we've had some dire summers in between times. We've had some really heavy rains and flooding, which again is part and parcel of climate change, if you want to call it that. So it's not a one-trick pony. We will get very good summers. We will get heat waves near 40 degrees on occasions in the decades to come. But we'll still get downpours of rain, and we'll still get very poor summers as well. So I'll go back to what I said 3 minutes ago. If you want to book a holiday for 8 weeks' time or 6 weeks' time down on the south coast, you cannot guarantee, once again, that it's going to be the weather that we've got outside the window at the moment.
John, I don't know whether you're comfortable answering this question, but is it a fool's errand trying to stop climate change or control temperatures?
Well, it would be far too expensive for one thing. You just couldn't. It's just out of the question. You can't control the atmosphere. We talk about space science being very complicated. I always think that the climate physics of the atmosphere, if you want to call it that, the physics of the atmosphere is virtually as complicated as space science. So I really don't think we've got a handle on it yet, and may never do so. It's a huge beast, the climate, the atmosphere around us, all around the globe. And it goes back to the chaos theory, doesn't it, really? The butterfly flapping its wings in Japan can cause trouble down the line in the next 3, 4, 6 months. So it's a chaotic world out there. And I couldn't possibly think that we could ever try and control things to any great benefit, really.
Well, that's why I've always felt that you've been very even-handed on that issue. It's become very tribal, hasn't it? You're either all in with net zero or you're a climate denier. Surely the truth is somewhere in the middle, John. One thing is true, we're going to have to get used to things like air conditioning, including perhaps in our homes now with new builds.
Yeah, there's one thing that puzzles me about heat pumps and air conditioning and that sort of thing. The heat exchange that's going on in these things has got to push more hot air into the atmosphere. So isn't it really causing more trouble? That's just not going to be benefiting anyone, really. If we have heat exchanges everywhere, more heat into the atmosphere, and that's just going to be a vicious circle. I don't agree with any. I certainly wouldn't have a heat pump myself. You know, as I say, it's a complicated world out there. I think we're a long way away from climate meltdown, but I can understand why people think that way.
Well, I agree with you, John. And what I'd like when it comes to climate change and net zero is just more of an evidence base, actually. And let's have policies that work. And I think if we focused on less pollution, that would be a good place to start. But I know what you mean about the contradictions, like heat pumps, you know, could they do more harm than good? It's the same with electric cars, because they're fantastic, aren't they, John, because of the emissions. But I don't understand the environmental argument for scrapping an 11-year-old diesel that works perfectly well in order to buy a new car which is going to save the planet. I can't quite square that circle.
Yeah, I love a hybrid, you know. I think somewhere in the middle, I mean, that's me. That's been me throughout my career, I suppose, sitting on the fence. So I go for a hybrid.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm a Prius owner myself, let me tell you, and I drive it with pride. John, before we let you go, what do you make of those weather maps now on TV where everything is scorching red, even though it's just 28?
Yeah, I never watch television these days for looking at weather charts, obviously looking at weather presenters. Never see them. I do my own thing, so I can understand what you're saying. 28 degrees is now decided as the threshold for a heat wave in the London area. Doesn't sound that high to me. Not when you've had 38 and 40 degrees in years gone by. And going back to 1976, of course, that very hot summer, everything was bone dry for 2 years. It felt like that anyway. And, you know, whatever the temperature might have been, they wouldn't have been showing red maps. And you just have to suffer and go along with it, really.
John, my first ever TV gig was a Channel 4 programme called Show Me the Funny. You were the star guest. You were a gentleman then, and you're a gentleman now.
I remember it so well, Mark. I don't know what happened to my career, but you've gone on anyway.
Did you get paid, by the way? Don't forget to get the invoice in.
I think it's about 25 quid, yeah.
Worth every penny. John, lovely to see you again, and thank you so much for a really interesting conversation about the weather. Who knew the weather could be so fascinating? John Ketley, legendary weather presenter. We always love having him on the show. Really, really nice man. And very wise on a lot of issues. Here's a voice note, speaking of wise, from lovely Anna in Surrey versus about the divided right.
Good afternoon, Mark. Anna, Surrey. I'm just listening to your guest slate Rupert Lowe and his followers. Not good policy, not good politics. He said the words far right, they don't understand. Who does he sound like? Sounds like the left wing and the mainstream media. I like Rupert Lowe. I support every single policy Rupert Lowe has. Are you calling me far right? I'm not. I'm right wing. And will I vote for Nigel? Yes, at the minute, but not if I hear more rhetoric like this. I'll switch my vote to Rupert Lowe and I'll take my chances. Sick of being insulted by political pundits. I choose who I vote for and whether I'm left or right wing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Anna, you're right about that. And it's all about people power. That is the definition of democracy. Thank you for your voice note. Elma is in Wiltshire. Hi, Elma.
Hi, lovely. Thanks for speaking to me, Mark.
Well, thank you for calling, Elma. How are you today?
Me, I'm good. Well, I'm hot.
I know. Have you got any air conditioning, or have you got a fan or something?
I've got fans all over the house. I'm falling over the wires.
Oh, my goodness. Well, look, Elma, stay cool if you can. What do you make about this split on the right of politics?
I don't know about the split, but what I do think, and I'm an old woman, but what I do think is all parties to the right should delete themselves and give reform a chance, because my attitude is, my belief is, that the only thing this country has got to save it is reform. Now, it's nothing to do with the man himself. He's fine. It's the party's policies that people are frightened of.
Well, I think you're right. And what attracts you to reform, Elmer?
Well, what attracts me to reform was the fact that I can't think of the leader's name right now. Who is
Nigel Farage.
Farage, that's it. Farage. What Farage did, he got us out of
Europe.
He got Brexit. Yes, he did that. He then left because he had heart problems. He's now come back, and he's a man. He's brilliant. I think he is a hard-speaking, factual-speaking man. Now, most other people I've noticed vote for their party, not for the country.
Well, I know what you mean, Elmer. I hear you loud and clear. You feel that Nigel is very consistent, very authentic, and a solid man. And many feel that way too. So, Elmer, thank you for your call. Elmer there, Reform is the only party on the right that have a chance of winning in an election. Well, that's the question, isn't it? Is Farage the only politician that can now defeat the left in Britain? More of your calls next.
If your other half came home with £125,000 worth of motorhome, wouldn't you go, darling, where did you get that from? Yeah. Have that turned up on the driveway? Where did you get the motorhome from? It's a very expensive motorhome. £81,000 Jaguar, Volkswagen Golf, partly funded with stolen cash, luxury watches over 9,000 quid, Mont Blanc pens, a £3,232 coffee machine. Like, what was the man doing?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
3:50. Would Andy Burnham be an improvement on Keir Starmer? Jill is in Cornwall, probably the most beautiful part of the country. Hi, Jill.
Hi, Mark. Yes, it is. It's beautiful. But sometimes the signal for phones and things like that, computers, can be, well, a bit iffy.
I know. And there are challenges in the Cornwall economy as well, aren't there?
Yes, very much so. Actually, I was in contact with the council earlier today, reference a few things that I'm not happy with, but Unfortunately, that's the way it is at the moment.
I know. I do feel that the southwest is often a forgotten part of the country. And Jill, I was down there in New Quay about 5 or 6 years ago, and we were in a restaurant, very nice, in the evening, and one of the waitresses was talking about the migrant hotel up the road and how that had made life very different for the residents. And that was a portent of what was to come across the country.
Oh, yes, yes. And this is what is, I find, so irritating with this Labour Party. And to be honest, I would like to see a few more politicians standing up in front of a microphone and screaming what I'm thinking about the situation that's happening to this country. We've got all these so-called parties now, and nothing is happening about the things that are upsetting people, and it just becomes more and more frustrating.
I agree. We've got the Lib Dems, we've got Labour, we've got the Tories. They're like a bald men fighting over a comb, isn't it?
Yes, and the thing with which happened within our local council was that because they feel that reform is a threat to, to governing the area, they all get together and vote against them in order to stop them from getting in, even if they don't necessarily agree with all their policies, which for me is not council, is not politics, it's not party politics. If you're prepared to link up with other parties just to stop someone from getting elected.
Jill, it's all a game, and a lot of these people have never had a job. A lot of them don't live in the real world.
No, they don't. They don't seem to know how we feel. And if they do, and they're ignoring us, why are we paying for them? I can't understand. I mean, Andy Burnham is supposed to be standing against, he's supposedly going to be standing against Keir Starmer, and yet Keir Starmer is supporting him. I mean, that says to me that it doesn't matter which one of these idiots get in. They're all pushing the same politics.
Well, I mean, it shows how dishonest Starmer is, because Starmer knows that if Burnham wins, he is toast. I mean, Jill, briefly, before I get to Benjamin in Warwickshire, what do you think of Andy Burnham? I mean, is he the second coming? Is he going to be better than Starmer?
No. Unfortunately, the thing that links them all together is that they all promise you the earth and deliver nothing. And it's just a question of which one you like the look of rather than which one you want to believe.
Well, I know. I mean, I feel also, Jill, unfortunately, they're both wedded to the failed idea of socialism.
Yes. And what I'm upset about is that they've made the left seem the best route and the right seem to be the evil route. And yet I know so many different people who think and feel the same about me about certain aspects of what's happening to this country. And I would not put us all in the same corner when it comes to what we are. But for some reason or the other, if you think about what they call right politics now, you're an evil person and only the left is going to do any good. But I don't believe that at all.
Well, Jill, you're a gem. You're the opposite of evil. I'm so glad you called me. You take care of yourself in Cornwall and keep fighting the fight. And let's speak again soon. Have a nice afternoon. Benjamin's in Warwickshire. And Benjamin, I spoke earlier to Labour peer Lord Foulkes, who said that actually raising the minimum wage for young people has been a good thing. What's your view?
Good afternoon, Mr. Dolan.
Hello,
Benjamin. That gentleman was so far from reality, it was untrue. He was almost offensive. I can't understand. When I was young, I started off at the bottom of the totem pole, as they say.
Yeah.
And as you get experience, your money goes up, and obviously you get further on in a company. Now, how can a 16-year-old come in to a job that's on £2 less than a gentleman who's been there 50 years, who knows every single thing about that business? How is that discrepancy of £2, for example, worthwhile?
It's actually an insult to him, isn't it, the long-standing member of staff?
It is. It is, because every single person has started from the bottom of the totem pole. So why are we now giving people not starting from the bottom, but kind of starting from the middle, if you like, in financial terms? You work hard for what you've got, and it's not coming out like that anymore.
Well, what it is, I think, Benjamin, with some of these left voices is that they live in a utopia where somehow we can pay everyone loads of money and it's going to be the land of milk and honey. The issue you've got is just market forces and the bottom line, isn't it? Companies employ young people because they're cheap, and if they're not cheap, employ them, they will not.
Hence why the youth unemployment at the moment is so sky high, because they haven't now got the opportunity, like as you said, to go and get these low-paid jobs, to get experience, to get themselves a bank account and some money in there.
I mean, Ben, is it the worst thing in the world to get 5-6 quid an hour for pulling pints as your first job? Is that slave labour? I'm not sure it is.
No, of course it's not. Of course it's not. Everybody has to start from somewhere.
I know a father of three shouldn't be on a £5 an hour. I get it. I'm not a monster. But your first job, wet behind the ears?
The majority of these people, let's be honest, probably still live with the parents anyway.
Yeah.
So why do they need the more expense? They don't need it, do they? So why aren't we giving people character by going and starting at the bottom of the totem pole and working your way up? It builds character, it builds confidence, it makes you a person of who you are. It tests you on every single aspect that you're looking for.
And Benjamin, these companies, they want to look after their staff. The vast majority will give you a decent wage once you've been around for a year or two.
And that's the whole point, you know. It's the whole point of, say, for example, of an apprenticeship. It wouldn't be an apprenticeship if you came in and you were on £2 less than the gentleman who had been there 50 years. That's not an apprenticeship.
Benjamin, you made a whole lot of sense. You made my day. Thank you for a great call. Go and have a nice afternoon. Benjamin in Warwickshire there. Lord Fuchs is out of touch. Young people need to work their way up the system. Someone at the very top of the tree is Kevin O'Sullivan.
Did you have Lord Fuchs?
I mean, don't worry about minimum wage. This guy...
Yeah, I get less than that. Did you have Lord Fawkes on this?
Did.
What is that guy for?
Well, I know it's hot outside, but I think he was on the Pims early.
I know. I'm going to get him on my show and say, do you understand why people get you on to talk, you old fool? It's so we can laugh at you. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, his latest comedy routine is that...
He's an idiot.
He thinks that Andy Burnham is going to win the by-election, which he may, and that he won't be Prime Minister. He's going to be a loyal servant of Starmer.
Yes, Lord Fawkes. Yes, Lord Fawkes. That's going to happen. He's like a reverse barometer.
Now, this afternoon, you are our man.